Good evening and welcome to tonight's meeting of Burnside Council, opening at 7 p.m. We are still spaced appropriately according to COVID restrictions in the chamber. We are able to welcome you back into the chamber because of these restrictions, but space is only available in the gallery hallway entry area because of social distancing. Public question time has returned and it is included in this agenda. I remind you all of our new meeting procedures and the new warning bell at 2 minutes and a longer warning bell at 3. I know that Mr. Cooper was just practicing a little while ago, when I encourage you to complete your debate at the warning bell at 3 minutes. A reminder too about the use of one question at a time. Please be respectful of each other and their opinions during these debates and not interrupt the person debating or talk while they are speaking. Now please stand for the acknowledgements. We acknowledge that the land we meet on today is the traditional land of the Kaurna people and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the original custodians of the Adelaide region and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still important to the Kaurna people today. We also pay respect to the cultural authority of Aboriginal people visiting and attending from other areas of South Australia and Australia. On behalf of the City of Burnside, I gratefully acknowledge and pay respect to those who have sacrificed their lives for this country and its people. We pray for understanding and guidance in our debate as we make decisions that will impact on the lives of all who reside, study, work in or visit the City of Burnside. Grant us wisdom as we serve our community. Please be seated. In the case of an emergency, an alarm will sound and then please follow directions of the staff. I remind you that all council meetings are live streamed through the council's website and a copy of the agenda is available by downloading from this website. Members, please raise your hand to indicate you wish to speak and use your microphones when speaking. Switch them off when you finish talking. I ask you also to turn off your mobile phones now or place them on silent during the meeting. We have no apologies or leave of absence. Is there anyone who wishes to declare an interest? Councillor Lemon?
I'd like to declare that for 2016 and 2017 I was on contract to the SA Ambulance Service. I've had nothing to do with that organisation since early 2018 and that is relevant to 11.2.
Thank you very much. Confirmation of minutes. I seek a mover. Councillor Piggott. Seconded Councillor Turnbull. Thank you. All those in favour? Carried. Adjourned business. We need to now move to page 7, which is the report that we did not quite finish at the end of last council meeting. And listed there are a number of people who have not yet spoken at this point. We have the motion up there, which, if I remember rightly, had a few changes during the last meeting. Spoken, it's Councillor Lemon, Cornish, Hughes, Piggott and Jones. Asked a question, Davis, Davey and Turnbull. So we carry on from where we left off. Is there anyone who now wishes to speak on this matter or ask a question? Failing there being any questions, are you ready for me to go back to the mover of the motion? Councillor Davey?
Thank you. I'd just like to thank the staff for all the work they've done on this initiative. There is a lot of work that has been done and that needs to be done. I would just like to see when we release it for public comment that there is more equal emphasis placed on our mature age population, as well as there seems to be an emphasis in here on school children and our youth. And I think our transport network is crucial to keeping our mature age people mobilised. I mean, a third of our population is now over 50 and that's going to increase, that demographic is increasing. But we're having constant challenges to our ability of a lot of our aged people to move around on our footpaths because there's so much development going on and it's just a constant challenge to keep the footpaths open just so they can walk. So that's just one concern, but I think we need to, in this whole master plan, really consider how we keep our people with gophers and walking frames and all of those sort of accoutrements who are trying to stay at home are able to be mobile, get to their parks and get to their local shops. Thanks.
Councillor Dawes?
Yes, I will speak. I did move that we adjourn the debate, but I just want to say a couple of things. I think this plan is going to have some what I call high-level points of discussion and some lower-level points of discussion, still equally important, but just some examples. I expect this plan to tackle such issues as, and these have come before the council over probably more than 2 years, the 40 km/h limit within the suburban streets, as in Unley, whether we do that or not. The second one is trucks going down Portrush Road, back and forth, from Glen Osmond and back. And the third one, which I'm just giving an example, is various traffic calming devices throughout various streets. So I'm seeking a broad approach to this plan, not a piecemeal one. We have done it piecemeal in the past, especially the last 2 years, so I'm pleased this has come before us. I think it would be great to say that Burnside has a transport plan. That's where I'm coming from. And so that when any resident comes to us and say, well, this is what we believe, and it's in one plan. The cost is a worry, that was mentioned last time, so I trust we can do it at a lower cost over time. But I am supportive of this.
Thank you, Councillor Dawes. Councillor Henschke?
Thank you, Mayor. I did speak to the CEO about this paper, and I'm focused on the deliverables in regards to will there be any deliverables for policies, new policies, changes to existing policies, in particular the existing heritage conservation zones. I note City of Norwood has a very good master plan, if you like, and clear streetscape visuals for Kent Town, for example, so the residents know quite clearly what colour the bricks are going to be, the style, the aesthetics in that area. So a lot of effort's been placed into that detail, and I would like confirmation that a deliverable from this project would include policies to that effect.
3 minutes. Sorry, I thought that was a statement. Certainly, it will incorporate aspects of that. I'm just reflecting on the fact that we do have a streetscape guide, but obviously as this plan evolves, some of the policies may need updating to reflect our current position and Council's approach. So happy to commit to that, yes.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Right, then Councillor Lemon, you have the opportunity to sum up.
Nina Mani, which is Ghana for hello.
Yes.
I've always wanted to say that when I start. I would start with a question, if I may, and that is to the CEO. Did we land on what this part of it was going to be called? Was it going to be called City Master Plan Transport, in brackets after it, given that there's two parts to this City Master Plan? So I'll start with a question. So don't start the clock, Martin.
3, Madam Mayor, I might refer that to Mr. Kent.
Through your worship, my understanding is it would be called what the resolution states up on the screen, which would be City Master Plan, Urban Form and Transport.
Can I have another question then?
Yes, because I've had nobody else raise their hand.
Mr. Camp wasn't here last time we met, and there was a lot of debate about what it's going to be called, and I think it's important we get this right before I sum up.
Just reflect on my recollection of last, whichever evening it was. I'm quite comfortable that we're calling it urban form and transport to actually reflect the importance of the two aspects, but particularly to pull out transport so that the reader of the report understands it has two focuses. So I'm happy to be very deliberate about the title as it's listed there, that we'll always refer to it in the two terms, urban form and transport, not to be a combined city master plan with no explanatory extension.
So you're ready to speak now?
Thank you. I'll sum up. I'd like to thank everybody for their contribution. I think this is an excellent plan. I specifically want to thank Mr. Cant for sending us the elected members' information document today, which explained more clearly the intent behind this, where it is actually urban form and transport, and we're starting with the transport part of it. So I think this is step one in not having a piecemeal approach to our city, and I think it's excellent. I would like to point out on page 215 that the project plan, halfway down, the second lot of dot points, this will give us inputs into other levels of government public policy and service delivery consultation and decision-making processes. So when we have a whole of city master plan with respect to transport and specifically traffic, roads and traffic movement, we can then lobby the state government about things like needing slip lanes on their arterial roads and addressing the rat running problem that we've got in a variety of places in our city. And this plan, this master plan, will give us that. It will overlay everything else. When we debated this a fortnight ago, there was a lot of talk about environmental sustainability. This takes that strategy into account, and it has been pointed out that there'll be overlays of all those things on top of it. So I'm very happy to support this. I think it's long been overdue. We asked for this a while ago, and I think we should get going. And when we get to the urban form part of it, I think we'll be in a really good place to plan this city and to lobby for the city and its residents much more strongly than we do now, when we react to things happening here and there and throw band-aids on them. So I hope you support this. Thank you.
Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Now we move to public question time, but I don't believe we have anyone in the foyer out there, so that we haven't received any questions prior to the meeting. Thank you, staff. You got a short stay tonight, made up for last time. Okay, there are no presentations, there are no deputations, but there is one petition, and that's on page 42. I need a mover to receive that petition. Councillor Henschke, seconded by Councillor Cornish. All those in favour? Carried. Right, so I'm going to go through all of these reports. We've had no deputations tonight, so there's no need in my position to change the order of these. So 11.1, Councillor Lemon. 11.2, Councillor Lemon. 11.3, Davey, Councillor Davey. 11.4, Councillor Davey. 11.5, Councillor Hughes. 11.6, no one, Councillor Davey. 11.7. Right, and you're wishing to withdraw it, or are you moving it? I'll withdraw it because I've got a question. 11.8. Right, so do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Cornish, seconded by Councillor Lemon. All those in favour? Carried. Mayor's activity report, a mover? Thank you, Councillor Jones, followed by someone over here, I think it was Councillor Cornish.
Could I only suggest that we move item 1?
Sorry, item 1, how do you mean?
Of the officer's recommendation, there was 2 dot points there. The second one refers to accepting all of the elected members' submissions in the minutes, which there are none. So I think we
So
should.
I'm a bit lost.
A normal process is to receive your report.
Oh.
And also to receive
Oh, sorry, I didn't read the second part. Yes, apologies. Yes, okay. There are no additionals.
If the mover's happy to accept that, that is.
Happy with that, Councillor Jones? Councillor Cornish, you still seconding it then, and then those in favour? Carried. Right, so shall we move back to representation review? Councillor Lemon.
Thank you. I have an amendment to this review, which I'm hoping all of you saw today because I sent it round to all elected members. I think we need to make decisions about this, but I think making decisions about how we are actually going to proceed in terms of what this council is going to look like in the future is premature at this stage, because I feel that we still haven't interrogated the information as well as we could. So what I've done is I've got the first 1, 2 and 3 are the original officer's recommendations. Number 4, I think we need some more workshops. We've got a lot of raw data here in our, in like the spreadsheet, and I for one think that there are a lot of ways of slicing and dicing that'll give us a better picture of what the 400 plus 464 people have said, and I think that it would be remiss of us to make decisions without looking at that properly. I also would like to look at properly what the people in my ward have said. I'd like to be able to pull out each of my suburbs and look at what my suburbs, what the greatest proportion of any one of the options we sent out is for each of my suburbs, because as I read in one of the comments made, and if I can find it, I'll point it to you. Oh, I won't be able to find it quickly. But what one of the people said was, it's not about us, it's not about them, it's about us. And I think we need to keep that in mind when we're looking at this issue. It's about our residents and how our residents want this council to look. It's not about what we want. So I think there's an opportunity to look at this in greater detail. So I'd like some workshops. The elephant in the room, of course, is the Progressive Statutes Amendment Act, which is currently before the Legislative Council. My understanding is that the Labor Party is not going to support it. I'm not sure about the crossbenchers, but it may actually get stuck there and get sent back down with a lot of changes. When it does get sent back down to the lower house, we are actually now dealing with a minority government. So by the time it goes back there, we're probably 7 months out from a state election. So I think we deserve to see the progress of that bill before we make a decision on this, because it may or may not tie our hands. However, we do have some constraints time-wise. If we haven't finished this properly, by the 31st of October, is that the 1 minute left? Yes. If we haven't finished this properly by the 31st of October, the government will make a decision on our behalf. So for us to finish it properly by that date, we need to actually identify a preferred option on the 22nd of June and then go back out to community consultation so that we can make the 31st of October date. Now, I think that if we do those things, so items 1 to 7 on this motion, we will be able to do this properly with a good deal of thoughtfulness, and we will meet our timelines, and we will also know where the government's going. So I hope you support it. I actually think it's a good motion, but I'm very happy for anyone to improve it.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Jones, you wish to second it and speak, or hold your... Okay. Anyone else wishes to speak at this point? Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Lemon, for your motion. I'm happy to proceed along this way and support this process. I think I would actually go out for public comment with the current structure, the status quo. I think there's actually enough evidence from first round of community consultation that shows that our community would be quite happy with the current structure. And I note that the legislation is taking a while to get through the process, and bottom line is it might not even be successful. So I think allowing more time, but certainly for the issues that Councillor Lemon's raised, more discussion and consideration of the issues is very advantageous. So I'm happy to support this.
Councillor Piggott.
I support this motion. It's not a problem to have more time. I think it would more clarity around the whether the law comes in or not. I think we do have to be careful, though, listening to Councillor Davey saying that the research that we had done actually supports quite strongly the status quo. I don't think that's true at all. I'm happy to accept at the moment it's arguable, which is what Councillor Lemon, I think, will ultimately argue. But the fact to go out keeping the status quo, I think, is beyond the pale. And we do have to be careful, I think. I think it is unclear whether the amendment will go through. That's certainly true. But if the odds are in favour of that, then the only people who benefit from the status quo really is the 12 people here. And it gives us a 20% better chance of getting up in 2022. And we need to put that to one side. So I think more workshops. I'm happy to do that. Get us a bit more time. I'm certainly happy to support the motion. We just need to be careful with this one.
Councillor Cornish.
Thank you, Worship. Being careful with this one are the most appropriate words. There are some decisions this chamber has to make every 8 years, and this is one of them that is crucial to get absolutely right and what our community absolutely wants, because this is fundamental to the democracy in our little city that we've got. Some say not so little, but I think taking our time with this is probably the most appropriate course of action to make sure that we get it right and we serve our community correctly and ensure that we get the right form of democracy that our community wants at this point in time in the life of this city. So I'm happy to take a little bit more time with this. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Hedge.
Thank you, Mayor. The residents, I'm looking at a range of comments from residents, and there seems to be a theme about money, which is always very good, and the theme of not wanting to waste any more council money. So the community question is about community consultation. What budget do we envisage we will be needing to do this as per the motion item 7? Further community consultation, what would that budget be?
Through Madam Mayor, the further consultation mentioned there is really the statutory consultation that would be required as part of the normal process of electoral representation review. So it's not that we're envisaging any additional consultation, and that's already been budgeted. Mr. Cooper, I just can't think of the budget offhand.
Through the Mayor, it's 16,000.
Next is Councillor Davis.
I think it's very wrong to say that the only people who would benefit is the people around this room. And I think that when you consider that the job that we have, especially because we don't get chosen based on our necessarily our academic merits or by the diversity of our skills as a normal board would have, having the number of representatives that we have great benefits. I'd like to tell you a story of what you get for having 12 councillors. I had a complaint from a resident about the fact that his bins weren't getting collected on a regular basis. I went out and met with the resident who was extremely angry, and me personally, because it was my fault. And it wasn't my fault, but it was my responsibility. And so what I did was, after the rubbish collection came through, is I went down the street and I opened out every single red bin along that street and around the corner. And I turned out and I went through and I found out that people on his side of the road, their bins had not been collected. Not just him, but all of his neighbours as well. Then I went to the administration, because the administration were concerned that perhaps the bin had been placed out there earlier. or later or not on time. And I could say to the administration that without doubt it was every single bin along that road had not been collected. And I spoke with and I door knocked that entire street. There was about 6 or 7 on the path there. And I went back to the administration and I told them that. And as it turns out, what happened is that the GPS on the rubbish truck, when the operator pressed the button, it overlapped with the other garbage truck, which went the other direction. So it essentially meant that on their maps, it was recorded that a garbage truck had gone past, when in fact it hadn't. So that's the benefit that a resident gets when you have 12 councillors. If I had double the amount of constituents, and I have a friend over in Melbourne, and he has as many constituents as Vincent Tarzi does, or Vicky Chapman does. He has a huge electorate. And there's no way that he could give that kind of level of service to his residents. And so I think you want to be careful when we disagree with 38.1%, which is just under a majority who say that they're in favour of 12 councillors. And there's many ways to spin stats. That's obvious. I've spent money many different ways, depending on who you go. If you combine the number of people who want 12 or 10, well, that's an absolute majority. But at 48% is, you can spin this a number of ways. But I think you should be very careful in assuming that this is what the community wants, because what you get from local council is minutiae. You get detail. You get the ability to contact one of us at any time. You can't contact Vicky Chapman at any time. You can't contact the police minister at any time. You can't just pick up the phone. You get that from your councillors. So I'd be cautious in suggesting that the only people who would be better off. I think residents absolutely do benefit from the representation that we give them. Thank you.
Councillor Dawes?
Let's start from you.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. This is the 4th R, isn't it, really? Rates, rubbish, roads and representation. So I do take Councillor Cornish's point. I also take Councillor Pickett's point about being careful. I think Councillor Davis mentioned that as well. Just a couple of things here. Please note that the current legislation says if we have 12 or more, we've got to justify it. Now, based on the survey, which wasn't perfect, it doesn't clearly state that we should stay with 12. On paragraph 18, and I want to throw this into number 4 of Councillor Lemon's motion, it does say that if we wish to get more information from our residents as to whether it be 12 or something else, it's going to cost us $16,000. I'm not sure that one or more workshops amongst ourselves is going to resolve it. I think we need more information. No one around this room can tell us that the majority, which is more than 50% of the residents, want a certain number of councillors. And that's why I'm going to support Councillor Lemon's motion, because we do need more time. But I won't just say we need more workshops. I would say to administration that if we need to do a bit more work with our residents through the June issue of Focus magazine, then we should ask another question. But I think I'll wait for administration to come back to us on that particular one. But if we're going to debate the results we've got currently in 2 or more workshops, I can't see us resolving it any further. We do need more information. I really do think that. We keep referring to Campbelltown. Campbelltown did go from 14 down to 10, was it 8 years ago, whenever it was, and there was tremendous uproar about that, because some of the councillors believed that reducing it by such a great amount was a bit too much of a change. So I do support, though, that we don't go for 10 or 8 as an alternative. Sorry, 8 or 9 as an alternative. If we are going to have a look at it, we should look at 12 or 10. That's my opinion. But that's my opinion. It's not necessarily the residents' opinion. So I will support the motion from Councillor Lemon, provided we just don't have workshops and look at that information again. We need a bit more than what we've currently got.
Councillor Turnbull.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'm happy to support Councillor Lemon's motion too, but I do agree with Councillor Dawes about the workshops. This was a very small sample size, I worked out 0.7% of the Burnside Council voting residents. Well, that's not much at all. Not a strong response on which to base conclusions. And the survey was sent November the 17th to January. So we all know everybody's into Christmas, holidays, what to do with the kids during school time. Haven't got time to think about elected members and how many there should be. So the timing, I thought, was poor as well. It doesn't give the council a clear direction forward. While the greater vote favoured the status quo of an elected mayor, plus 12 elected members, didn't gain 50% support from the limited number of respondents. And there were no preferential options like, if you don't like this, what's your next choice? So if we take any messages from this survey, it seems to be strong community support for an elected mayor, independent of the elected ward councillors, and strong support for the City of Burnside to retain the ward structure, with each ward having 2 elected members, or perhaps 2 elected members. I find it quite odd that the proposed cap should be an even number. If we are to have a chosen number of wards, we need to make it an odd number so we can accommodate the elected mayor, so 5 wards of 2 plus the elected mayor. But I really don't know where they plucked the number 12 from, but they have. So I really think that we do need more work on it. I think council requires further and better information before we decide to change what appears to be the preferred model, or the current one. Thank you.
Councillor Davey, you have a question?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes. I can't recall whether it's in the document, but it's just occurred to me. Is it possible in the paperwork that's being produced and when it goes out for consultation that we make clear that there's no boundary realignment proposed in this process? I don't know. I can't recall reading it. It's just that we've had this issue ongoing for years, cycling through, about whether we should amalgamate
Sorry, Councillor Davey. Councillor Turman, can you turn your microphone off? Thank you.
Whether we should hive off a couple of suburbs, or a suburb, to go into Norwood, Payneham and St Peters. And I'm not sure if that's clouded this representation review or will have an effect on it, but I think it might be beneficial to include that. I don't.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We'll certainly ensure that the language that's used in any documentation makes it very clear that this is about the current boundaries of Burnside. I don't believe there's been any confusion. I haven't heard any rhetoric that would make me come to that conclusion, but the language will be clear.
Councillor Cubbo.
Thank you, Your Worship. I suppose I too am a little bit disappointed by the response, but I've sort of come to expect that with our recent surveys that people are a little bit over it. My concern is that the results are the results. It's always going to be that 0.7%, and there's nothing we can do to change that moving forward. And I'm cautious about doing another survey in the focus because that's going to just confuse it. You've got one survey, you can't just keep doing survey after survey after survey until you get the response that you like. But my question is there anything else that we can throw into the mix that won't disturb things too much? Like, for example, has the LGA done any surveys of their own that we can throw into the mix with our data that could give us a clearer picture?
Through Madam Mayor, with respect to the thoughts of the Chamber, I'm hearing that the Chamber is particularly interested in what the City of Burnside residents have to say and their opinions on representation. I'm not sure what adding broad data from the LGA would bring to the conversation. I'm happy to source it, but from what I'm hearing, I'm not sure it will carry any weight. But happy to source it if they have some broad data. And if I just may provide a comment on the 460 odd people that have responded to the survey. This is an overwhelming response and the highest of probably any electoral representation review that I've ever been involved in, and I think across the state, our participation rate is extraordinary. They're normally very low buy-in. The number, whilst I get the percentages, this is an extraordinary number of participants.
Councillor Hughes, I'm not sure if that was your hand up. Okay. Councillor Hughes.
I'll speak very briefly, but Councillor Turnbull raised a fair point about we don't have an indication of you know, if you're not in favour of this, whether you're in favour of that. But my understanding of the questionnaire that actually went out to residents, we asked them whether they strongly disagreed or strongly agreed on the various options that were presented in the paper. So question 5 was, please indicate your views on these 5 options that were presented, which went through options 1 to options 5. And so people have given us an indication of whether they strongly agree or strongly disagree on all of them, but that information hasn't been provided in a summary in the context of this report. So I would see great value in that workshop covering off on the statistical assessment of that, because I think we potentially have the answer to how people feel about all of these options. They may have ticked option 2 as, you know, this is my number 1 preference, but they may actually strongly agree with option 1 and 3. But we don't have that information at the moment, and I think there is extra data there that we could perhaps be presented with as an elected body that may actually help us move forward, because I think at the moment we really only have what people's first preference was as opposed to how they feel about the options in general. So I think there actually is some additional information there that we could get value out of.
Can I just ask, is that information available?
Through Madam Mayor, there's certainly some more dissection of the data that we feel we can obtain from the consultant. And in fact, we're talking about some data which we feel the consultant has, which we can get in a spreadsheet form to provide higher levels of dissection and analysis. Okay. So the short answer is yes.
Good to hear. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Councillor Jones, you were reserving your right. Seems like now might be the time.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, look, I think this is a good motion. I think we should take our time. We don't need to rush, so let's not rush. Let's get it right. Let's see what happens with the legislation, because I think that's critical. I mean, I don't think it's any great secret that I'm a status quoer, but I am persuaded that sticking our finger up to the state government would perhaps be unwise. So I really think we should wait and see what they happen. I mean, my takeout from this, again, it probably won't be a great surprise. I wasn't impressed by the advice we got. We asked far too many questions, gave far too many options for people to come up with. If we're doing this every 8 years, we should have done a statistical representative survey. And what we got was a self-selected survey. And Councillor Carbone prefigured this. He thought a lot of angry people would just say, let's go to 8, because that's the fewer of the bastards there are, you know, quite frankly. And you saw that in the responses. There's some people who thought we were all lazy good-for-nothings. And why aren't we knocking on their door every fortnight, asking what their problems are? You know, lazy bastards. And so I just think it was a self-selecting survey. There not many people responded to it. I think there's quite clearly preference to have an elected mayor. There's quite clear preference to have wards. I'm rather more sceptical about whether there's any statistical validity in how many wards and how many councillors there should be. So let's take our time, and I hope you'll support the motion.
Councillor Hughes, you have a question.
Sorry, I just have a question. The community survey that we do that is apparently representative of the community, because we phone people when we get a good cross-section of demographic and all that kind of thing. What's the cost associated with doing a survey like that as opposed to compared to the $16,000 that it would be to do another mail-out survey?
Through Madam Mayor, does Mr Cooper have that figure on hand? I think, yeah, my recollection is it's 40-something.
Through the Mayor, I think it's about 45,000.
Thank you. Anyone else who wishes? Councillor Pickett, do you have a question?
Just follow up Councillor Hughes' question. The 45 or whatever, that's for 15 questions or something, isn't it? So perhaps it wasn't the question. If we were to do a citywide survey that asked very specific questions about, you know, do you think we should have less elected members? Should we have 10 or whatever? That wouldn't be 45, would it? I know there's certain start-up costs, but it's a lot shorter phone call.
Through the Mayor, that's correct. Our estimate of 16,000 would be nearer the mark for that type of survey. Yep.
Councillor Davey, you have a question?
Thank you. Yes, I was just on that interesting discussion. Is there any criteria in the criteria, any requirement in the criteria for what sort of review we have, community consultation? Just so that we support the principles of democracy and our citizens aren't disenfranchised.
Yeah. Through Madam Mayor, the electoral representation review requires, as per the Act, requires certain questions to be asked, and we've fulfilled that obligation in the consultant's report. And I know Councillor Jones felt there was a few too many questions, but some of that was driven by the requirements of the legislation. Should Council wish to undertake further surveys or analysis, that it's able to do that, and I don't think it would expose the council in any way. I think we've fulfilled our requirements. We're simply seeking further information to make an informed decision, if that's the path you decide to go down.
But I understand we do have to go out to the community one more time, though.
Certainly, through Madam Mayor, the process will be once council determines its preferred option, then as per the Act, we are required to consult with our community and inform them and seek their feedback on the council's preferred option.
So, for example, if we decided that we were going to go to 10, it would go out to the community anyway, and then they would have the opportunity to say that's rubbish, or no, we don't want that, we want to maintain what we have already, and we don't want any reduction in our numbers. So that's the way I have always seen it. So I just wanted to make sure that I was getting it right and we were all on the same page.
Yep. No, through Madam Mayor, that's correct.
Councillor Hughes, you have another question?
Sorry, I'm going to ask another question. So if we, just playing out the mayor scenario, we go out and say we're going to go with 10, and then a majority of people say, no, we don't want 10, what do we do then? Because we haven't asked them, well, what else do you want if you don't want 10? Because we've already asked that in the first survey where people say they want 12. So do we then have to go back? Do you know what I'm trying to ask a question. I'm not doing a great job of it, but do we then have to go back to the community because we've presented an option, they say no, or we just make a decision?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it can't be a continuous feedback loop. There's a point where council has to make the final decision based on the best feedback you receive. So it was within your power, in your scenario, to make the assessment as council sees it. You don't keep consulting until you get a yes from the community.
And you could consult and they come back with 50% of people want 12, and we say, well, you say you want 12, but we'll just go with 10 because that's what we feel is better anyway. We don't have to go with what the community actually say at all.
Through Madam Mayor, you may not phrase it that way, but yes, you could resolve to go for 10.
Okay.
And I think the ultimate thing to bear in mind with council's final decision is that then goes to the Electoral Commission, who then ultimately have the final say. Now, in the past, they have referred decisions back to council and said, sorry, not happy with that one.
So in the end, the community may not even have an ultimate choice. Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to Councillor Lemon.
Thank you. Thank you all for your debate and your support. I've just got a couple of things that I'd like to finish up with. First of all, we have made decisions tonight, 1, 2 and 3 are decisions we've made that are actually directly related to the results of the survey. I'd like to actually address 2 issues that have come up, or 3, no, actually 4 issues that have come up very quickly. We need to look at the current results because they're the only ones we've got at the moment. So I think that bearing in mind that what we've got at the moment is raw data that can be manipulated to give us a clearer picture of what people were saying, I do believe that at a workshop we can, if nothing else, at least dispense with some options as not viable, given community consultation. So if nothing else, we might narrow the gap to enable us to make decisions. I would also say that a response rate of 428, I actually think that's the highest this council has ever had to a representation review. But my recollection is when this was presented to us by the consultant, I think this is the 2nd highest in the state, 428 people. So to say it's a minimal number, yes it is when you're looking at 45,000 people in Burnside, But when you compare this to the response rate to other representation reviews across other council areas with bigger populations than we have, like Salisbury, I think, has got 80,000 people, we've got a higher response rate. So I don't think we should feel ashamed about that. I'm quite proud that we've got such a high response rate, even though it seems to be low. In terms of self-selected, it's true, a lot of people that responded to this hate councils and want to get rid of them, and they should all be amalgamated and we should be part of the City of Adelaide. But from what I read, an equal number of people said they were really happy with what their local councillors were doing and they wouldn't want to change them. And I really took a lot of heart from that. So they selected as happy customers, and I thought that was pretty good as well. And I think we are in a position to make a final, well, let's hope we are in a position to make a final decision on the 22nd of June after we've actually talked it through in a less formal setting, got more information from the information that we have in our raw data and gotten rid of some options as not viable. I'm hopeful that this motion will see us making a decision with knowledge about what's happening with the Statutes Amendment Bill by the end of June. So I thank you for your support of this.
All those in favour? Against? Carried. The thing that we might just comment on following that on from that, Councillor Lemon, was the satisfaction rating that we got in the annual community survey in terms of the improved position of the way that the community perceives elected members. So I think that's actually a really positive indicator. All right. I believe, Councillor Lemon, you have the next one as well.
Thank you.
11.2 on page 155.
And again, I have an amended motion. So we note the report. We agree that it's open to allow two-way traffic flow. Agree that the current road closure structure, which is a lattice screen that covers half the entrance on the Fullerton Road side, stays in place as a traffic calming measure, so even though people can come and go, they actually have to give way to each other. That we look at local streets to assess traffic movements in the area. We report any issues that are identified to us by May next year, and that we advise local people that this is a decision that Council has made. Now, what I'd like you to do as I speak to this motion is to actually go to page 174 and look at the bird's eye view of the area that we're talking about. And the bird's eye view of the area that we're talking about, what you can see is Trust Lane. Now, in particular, I want to draw your attention to the Fullerton Road end of Hawkville Terrace, where you've got a development. When you look north towards Greenhill Road, you've got a lot of masonettes. So what you've got is you had urban infill that took place there in the 90s. So you've got 2 for 1. So where you had probably 9 blocks of land, you've now got 18 separate residences. All of them have got a rear entry. There was agitation to close the lane from mid-90s, and it was finally closed in 2002 with a lot of agitation from that urban infill that took place. There was, as far as I know, a survey that took place in 2001, and that was pretty much half and half, as the one that's recently taken place is too. A lot of lobbying was done because of cut-through traffic, but again, if you look at that aerial map, you wouldn't cut, if you were going to be a rat runner to avoid the set of lights, and I don't know why you'd want to avoid the set of lights because there's a left turn slip lane, but if you were going to rat run, if the traffic was banked up, you'd rat run down Hawkville Terrace and into Birkin rather than Trust Lane into a T-junction of Birkin, which is a very narrow street, and then do a left turn. You wouldn't be gaining any time at all by rat running down Trust Lane. We did a survey. 57% of people wanted it to remain open. Some of those people were in fact businesses fronting Greenhill Road. This is one of the most interesting interfaces we've got between commercial and residential. but it's not entirely problematic for residential because there's a laneway between them and the commercial buildings. So I actually think we should take notice of what those commercial people have said in this, and most of them have said that they'd like the laneway to stay open. AGL's head office is on the corner. The Cancer Council is, you can see where that is, that big green area off Green Hill Road, and the ambulance services head office is also on Green Hill Road with a rear entry as well. And on the second floor of that building, that's where all the 000 calls for ambulances come in. If you've read the report well, you'll see that our engineers, our traffic people say there's no difference in safety, and there hasn't been statistically since when the lane was open and when the lane was closed, and that there is no financial impact whatsoever in opening or closing this lane. So I hope you support this.
Thank you. I seek a seconder. Councillor Hughes, do you wish to speak now or reserve your right? Is there anyone who wishes to speak on this? Councillor Dawes?
This is an awkward one, because if you go to page 165, and they have labelled, the administration have labelled the pink and the blue, and I look at those along Truss Lane, and there's a whole lot of pink there going towards, what's that road in the far left? I can't see what that road's called.
Birkin.
Yeah, so if you look at the blue zone only...
Sorry, Councillor Lemon, can you put your microphone on, please?
Sorry.
Yeah. If you look at the blue zone, and I'm always about having a majority view on these things, so if you look at the blue zone, the blue loans, the majority say closed. If you look at the larger area, it's 57 to 43%. So that supports what Councillor Lemon is saying. I guess I'm looking at the residents more so here along that lane, and at the moment I need to be convinced that this is the best option. So I'll leave it there.
You will have your opportunity, Councillor Lemon, when you summarise. Is there anyone else? Councillor Carbone?
Thank you, Worship. I'm not feeling that well tonight, so I'm going to keep this short and sharp. But I'm going to speak against this motion. Very quickly, we closed this road, and I use the word road very loosely because it's essentially a little back street laneway. But we closed this road because of what the residents wanted 20 years ago, and it's been that way ever since. When the Bridgestone redevelopment kicked off, essentially, I think on the fly, we reacted to the complaints from the local residents in Burkin Street, and we opened up Truss Lane, and it was always interpreted as a temporary measure while the building was being built. The Bridgestone building is now finished, and Burkin Street has been opened up again. So all those residents living on that street can easily access Green Hill Road. We did a survey, as Councillor Dawes has already mentioned. The people in pink voted against keeping the road open. And these are the residents that are mostly affected by it. And we all got a memo from our marketing people to say that they've done the research, they've analysed the results, and they interpreted that we should close the road because the people who were mostly affected voted no, where the people were a little bit on the fence voted yes. It is dangerous. I've had a lot of calls from people, virtually all 10 people along that road towards the Fullerton Road end are deeply, deeply concerned. We have written to them and we have told them already that the road would actually be reclosed. So as far as they're aware, they've done the survey, we fulfilled the promise with the Bridgestone redevelopment, and it's now going to be closed again. And here we are, again, second-guessing our administration and saying that we know best, and we're going to write to them again saying, actually, change of plan, we're going to reopen it again. So I urge you to vote against it. It's been closed for 20 years. People who bought and have lived on that street for 20 years, this is what they are used to. And particularly people who live towards Fullerton Road are deeply concerned about the safety of them backing out of their garages onto this small laneway and dealing with the oncoming traffic. I urge you to vote against this motion. We need to close Truss Lane because that's what we promised the people and that's what we will deliver upon.
Councillor Piggott.
Could I ask a question? Why, if we closed it for a specific reason, opened it, and we're going to close it, why did we do the survey?
Through Madam Mayor, if I can refer that to Mr. Cooper. Through the Mayor, whilst we had the laneway open because of the Birkin Street closure, we had a number of comments that residents liked it open, and as a result of those requests that we decided to go out and do a survey. So it was based upon comments, positive comments, that they wanted it to continue as it was, i.e. open.
Do you wish to speak, Councillor Piggott? Yes, certainly, since there's nobody else seeming to indicate anything.
I think Councillor Carbone referenced an administration recommendation of what to do with this road. Can I just clarify what that was in the absence of tonight? Like, if this hadn't come to council, what would administration be doing?
Through Madam Mayor, I refer that to Mr. Cooper. Through the Mayor, Councillor Carbone's correct. We did write to all residents that were consulted to advise them that the lane would be reclosed. So we would maintain the closure in full following the consultation process.
Councillor Lemon, you have a question?
Yes, could I ask administration how many people voted to remain open in the percentage?
Through the Mayor, 57% of the people consulted requested it to stay open.
It's actually on page 5. Councillor Hughes, you have a question?
So I just want to confirm, might be a question, but it might be just a confirmation. So we're saying that the community was advised in November of 2020 of the outcome. Were they just advised of the results of the survey, or that's when they were advised that the road would be closed? Because I don't think it was specifically stated that they were advised that the road was definitely closing. It just says they were advised of the outcome.
Through the Mayor, the advice is actually included in attachment B, and it basically just confirms that the lane will be closed. The actual results of the consultation were not published. The results themselves were considered by the administration, and whilst the majority of everybody consulted requested it to be left open, council administration did take particular notice of the residents in the street. The split there was fairly even. 14 wanted it closed, 13 wanted it open. So that's why we recommended and advised the residents that the closure, which was set out to be only temporarily opened, would be closed.
Councillor Davey, you wish to speak or a question?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to support this motion. I think it's entirely logical based on what I recall of this and the results in front of us. I think the results of the consultation are very clear. 57% would like the laneway to remain open, and 43% would like it closed and reinstated to its original condition. This has been a change over 20 years, in which case, to my knowledge of the area, the whole area has significantly changed in terms of the large businesses in the area, particularly the ambulance service, which has developed and consolidated on their site. There have been some changes in residential use, and of course the ever-present densification of the traffic. But I note the comments that have been made that it should never have been closed. It was closed without consultation 20 years ago. Many of the people using businesses use the area when leaving work. So I think in the interests of everybody and the area, I think it's wise to keep it open and to monitor the streets too, as we are aware, for the changes that this may produce on the local area and other issues that may arise from time to time. So I think this is the sensible option to go down.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? I think I heard Councillor Piggott. Have you got another question, or you wish to speak? And then it was Councillor Turnbull, and then Councillor Henschke. Okay, and Councillor Davey.
Look, I'm not going to support it either. And I think I don't think we can be answerable to what happened in 2002 and whether it was, done right or whether it wasn't done right. I don't think that's really the point. I think we're at risk of doing a wrong in 2021, actually, given that we've told these people it will close. I think the irony of this is that I will argue to look further behind the headline figure of 57%, and I think the page 165, the pinks and the blues are quite instructive. The people most affected by this street presumably are the people on the street. And when you count them up, I think you've got about 13 pinks all in a row, so that'll be a lynching mob. And then you've got, I think, 5 or 6 fronting that lane who actually want it open. The others certainly got a vote, and I don't discount them, but they are probably second tier for mine. So I do feel... The other thing I do worry about saying, look, we're just opening this on we need to get this building built, want your cooperation, we're going to open it. It's okay, we'll close it again. Then we write them a letter to say, done, we're closing it again. And now we're going to write them a letter to say, well, actually, no, we're not, we're opening it. I think that's a real problem. And to do that, we need to be really solid on why we're doing it, and I don't think the case is made. I certainly will be open to Councillor Lemon's summing up, but at this point I don't think the case is made.
Councillor Turnbull.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question. Could it be open for 3 months as a trial and monitored? Because it's a reasonably close vote.
It's open now. It's open for 6 months.
No? Okay.
Do you want to respond?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the road is currently open, so we're able to monitor the results as it stands, if that was the wish of council.
So there is a current trial period happening?
Through Madam Mayor, it's certainly an option. Should council choose to take it, we can enact either way.
Right, next is Councillor Henschke.
I've got a question about what we anticipate with the impact of the Glenside development. Have we considered the population growth, potential cut-through traffic risk of that in this?
Through Madam Mayor, if I can refer that to Mr Cooper.
Through the Mayor, Council Administration does not believe that the Cedar Woods development will have any impact at all on the Truss Lane traffic situation.
Good question to ask. Councillor Davis.
Hello. It's obviously a difficult decision. I think that to my mind, I look at page 165, and I actually find this type of report very, very helpful, because you can see who's in favour and who isn't. I think the people who are living in apartments, they're largely 50-50. But if you look at the blue ticks versus the pink ticks, which are residential, you have, I count 11 to 13 on Trust Lane who are affected, and then 17 to 14 residents who are in the immediate areas as well. We have such a small, and I think it's wrong to just disregard what the commercial properties want as well. They are ratepayers just the same as our residents, and they have votes just the same as our residents. And I think they should have a view on it as well. And I think that if you have a look at the consultation that come back, it's not so clear. Some people are saying, why didn't you do this? Of course, this is so obvious on both sides. Like, you know, you have a consultation that says should never have been closed in the first place, was closed without consultation. And then the other side, it's like, why are we even discussing this? So I think it seems to be a very divisive issue. And it seems the further away you actually get away from the road closure, the more divisive, like, you know, the more in favour it's of being opened. I think that it's unfortunate that, you know, a representation would be made that it would be closed, but that shouldn't be a consideration for you. If the administration send out a letter, you know, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, and that's okay. I don't think that locks us into anything. I mean, that's why we're here, is to make an informed choice and to make a decision. And to my mind, I think that it should be left open. There's no danger presented to residents who are backing out. There's no threat from the Glen side. I think that if people were trying to rat run down that road, you'd be placed at a very significant disadvantage than just going around the left-hand turn of Greenhill. But I mean, if you're a resident, you're trying to get back onto, if you're trying to travel north, what's your route? You come down the road, down Trust Lane, and then you have to turn left onto Greenhill Road, and then somehow do a U-turn back onto Greenhill to get back to Fullerton Road. I mean, that would be a nightmare, in my view, and potentially all you're doing is just forcing people down Hortfield Terrace as well. So I think that people should be able to move around their suburbs easily and cleanly, and I think we should open it without a compelling argument to close it. We're not seeing, it's different from other areas where there's outrage about rat running and those problems, or there is safety concerns. It's not the case here, and largely we should have simple egress of people so they can move around our city, rather than forcing them to do a rat run in front of Hortfield. They should be able to use the road they live on, to my mind. So I can understand that it's difficult to then go against what the administration is, but we're not here to just follow every recommendation that the administration get. You know, we're here to empathise with people and to understand how they're feeling. So I'm in favour of this motion. I think we should support it.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Councillor Hughes, you now wish to speak or ask another question?
I just had a question. So obviously significant weight has been paid to those residents that are in pink, but our engagement process was to include all of those people. So I'm just wondering, did that engagement process comply with our community engagement policy? And that's why we had that selection. And if we were only going to consider those people within a smaller area, why did our catchment extend wider than that? If that makes sense.
Through Madam Mayor, if I can refer that to Mr Cooper.
Through the Mayor, yes, the engagement did comply with our policy. We took this catchment area at the start because we knew that the residents of Hortfield Terrace would be impacted in terms of a decision. It came out at 57%, wanting to keep it open. Because it wasn't a huge majority, we did take that second cut at the results, and it was quite informative just looking at the residents that have direct entry onto Trust Lane, as defined in the blue boxed area. And it was on that basis that it was just too close to call. And because the commitment had been made that, look, this was a temporary opening up to enable traffic to get around the Birkin Street issue, we thought it was too close to call. That's not taking anything away from tonight's debate.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak or ask a question? Councillor.
Definitely a question. Just a question to the worship, to the CEO, Your Worship. Because we told the residents that this was a temporary measure because of the Bridgestone redevelopment, and they bought it, and that was what they were led to believe. This was just a temporary thing. My question to the CEO is, are we at risk of, losing trust with our residents?
Well, I consider it was a question, and it's up to the CEO to determine whether or not, or how he answers it.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I can't really answer the question of trust, but I guess from my perspective, it's a question about, is the council able to make this decision? And the answer is yes, you're absolutely entitled to make the decision and weigh up all the facts and matters, the pros and cons. Thank you.
I'm not seeing anyone else raising their hand, so are you happy for me to go back to Councillor Lemon now? Okay.
Thank you. 339 surveys went out, only 67 people responded. And those 67 people were all in that catchment, in Trust Lane. I'd make a few points here. The reason that lane was opened was Bridgestone actually started redeveloping on the corner of Birkin and Greenhill and closed off Birkin Street and letterboxed all the neighbours to where they were, but didn't bother to tell council. And it wasn't until I got a phone call from one of the local people, why is Birkin Street closed, that we at council knew that they'd closed that road. So people do close the road without authority, indeed. So Trust Lane was open as a result of that. Now, when you look at the little pink dots, you look at the people that want it to remain closed up at the Fullerton Road end. When you look at page 174, and I actually have gone, I hope many of you were able to drive that, but last time I had my one-on-one with the CEO, we actually took a drive through Trust Lane. There is no parking on either side of the road from where that urban infill begins. None. Those people can back out into that lane, and their backing out area is bigger than my backing out area from my driveway into Lestrange Street. I've got a narrower street to back out into than those people coming out of their driveways. So to say that it's unsafe for them when there is no parking on either side of the road, and may I ask in the middle of this, how wide, just give us an estimation of how wide that laneway actually is. Make it quick, this is my time.
6 metre roadway plus at least another 4 or 5 metres from the roller door to the drain that runs down the edge of the road. So call it 10 metres.
Thank you. Yes, it's quite wide. So to say that they're disadvantaged is to in fact listen to people who haven't been disadvantaged from the start and are still not disadvantaged now. Most of us have got more difficulty backing out of our driveways. 57% of people wanted that laneway to stay open. Yes, council wrote back and said we're going to close it. We didn't write back. We didn't tell them. We didn't promise. We can actually choose to have that lane open, and we can choose to have that lane open because the majority of people and the businesses that interface with that lane want it to stay open. It doesn't disadvantage those people in the urban infill because they've got more than enough room to back out of their driveways, plus they actually have parking on Hawkfield Terrace with parking permits if they wish, and some of them have got driveways on Hawkfield Terrace too. So for 14 people to hold everyone else to ransom, I think is asking too much. So I do hope you support this because this is the right thing to do.
Right, those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those against? Division's been called, so those who voted for, please stand. Councillor Cornish, Hughes, Davey, Davis, Lemon, Turnbull, Jones and Hubel. Those against, Henschke, Henschke, Pigott, Carbone, Dawes. That's it. Thank you. Did you get that recorded okay, Wendy? Okay. I think one of the interesting things in there is a fallback position, and I like that bit you added into the clause about May 22. Yes. You've got the opportunity to look at it again. Yes. Exactly. I think that was a very good decision.
Could I just ask if we could have the doors closed? I'm finding the rehearsal
I was thinking
a bit
the same.
intrusive.
Yeah, it was very cold. I don't know if anyone else
And
feels like
that was
that.
going to be my second question. Could we have the aircon turned up a bit higher?
I think
to
with
be a
that
bit
door closed,
warmer?
it'd probably make all the difference, actually. Sorry, I didn't say that with my microphone on. It's 11.3, page 175, Councillor Davey.
Thank you. Thank you. It's better already, I can feel, with the doors shut. I'll move this motion, and for the benefit of those at home, that Council, designates the City of Burnside Building Fire Safety Committee as an appropriate authority pursuant to Section 157 of the Planning, Development and Infrastructure Act 2016. 2, delegate the power to appoint members to the City of Burnside Building Fire Safety Committee in accordance with Section 157(17)(a) of the Planning, Development and Infrastructure Act 2016 to the Chief Executive Officer with respect to the terms of reference for any appointments. And 3, adopt the terms of reference as provided in Attachment A to this report with a comma, and I just want to add another sentence or phrase, and include membership of both the MFS and CFS, comma, as is current practice. Thank you. If we go to page 179, at para 4.1.2, I congratulate the staff on reviewing these terms of reference. They haven't been updated for 13, 14 years, I believe, and the precipitation for this has been the new planning legislation. But 4.1.2 talks about it could be one or other representative, MFS or CFS. So the intention of my motion is that I believe, for the reasons that the way the City of Burnside is configured with our hills face zone and our buildings, which are getting closer together, more infill, more complex, with things like aluminium composite, flammable cladding and those sort of things, I think we need the expertise and experience to serve our community that is provided by both the Metropolitan Fire Service and the Country Fire Service. So that's just the intention of my adding that phrase, just clearly up front so that there's no ambiguity. I don't think there's a problem with that. I hope there's not. So hopefully someone will support that for me.
I don't think there's a problem. It's actually included on page 3 as 15.2. The idea of the CFS and the MFS being part of that, of being representatives. Okay, that's fine.
No, there is, I'm happy to second it, and there is a difference on page 179. It says and/or CFS representative. So this is requiring there to be one of each.
Specific, okay.
Yeah, which makes sense to me.
It does say in 15 that under delegation has previously appointed representatives from both.
Yeah, but that's not the policy, so. That's my understanding, right? That's how the administration will read that motion. Yeah, okay, I'll reserve my right.
Councillor Pigott, you wish to ask a question or speak?
I do. That's not a deliberate, is it fair to say it's not deliberate to actually drop one of them? The intent would be to have both MFS and CFS on the committee, is it? Great, thanks, good pick up.
Councillor Henschke.
Thank you, Mayor. The Building Fire Safety Committee, would they ever report to the Chamber through the year with pertinent facts and figures, please?
Sorry, Madam Mayor, if I can refer that to Mr Cooper.
Through the Mayor, the committee may report through the administration's infodoc process to elected members, but there would be no formal presentation of the committee to the Chamber.
Could I just ask a follow-up question to that? Would it perhaps go to the Audit Committee?
It's on page 105.
Since it's risk-related?
Sorry.
Yeah, just waiting for a response.
Through the Mayor, apologies for the delay. Yes, you're absolutely correct. In 8.814 of the new terms of reference, it does say there that the committee will report to Council on an annual basis, outlining the activities that the committee has undertaken. So going forward, that will be the case. And I don't see any reason why that shouldn't also go through to the Audit Committee under the new changes that are coming that way too.
No, that's why I asked that question. Councillor, I'm not sure, I just want to double check I haven't missed anyone, otherwise I'll go Councillor Cornish.
Thank you, Worship. I suppose another question just in terms of hierarchical order. This committee being established under the Planning, Development, Infrastructure Act obviously is very clearly different from a local government, you know, Section 41 or Section 42 committee. Therefore, I'd imagine comes under much different rules than what we're used to as a subcommittee of this council, and its reporting mechanisms and its responsibilities are very, very different to what we'd normally do in our daily business. Is that accurate?
Through Madam Mayor, yes, that's a fair comment.
Right, is there anyone else who wishes to ask a question or speak? Councillor Hughes, did you have a question? Okay. All right, well, I shall go back. Councillor Davis, you don't wish to speak? All right, so it goes back to Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everybody, for your input. I think this is an improvement, as Councillor Cornish just so eloquently outlined, to our previous system. This is a bit tighter, and I think the reporting mechanism is an improvement. So I think with those improvements and that that really important representation from both the MFS and the CFS to be ensured on the Fire Safety Committee, I think is what we really need in Burnside. So I hope you'll support this. Thank you.
Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Councillor Davey, I believe the next one is yours also. McKenna Street Reserve.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have an alternative motion to that on page 186. That is that Council receives the report. Can we have another space, please? Thank you. 2, adopts option 3 to maintain the community land outlined in the report and proceeds to remove encroachments, retain trees where possible and open the link to McKenna Reserve for the community. And 3, advises the applicants accordingly. This is an interesting application, which of course the local people adjoining this reserve have every right to make. However, the City of Burnside community really values its open space and community land very highly for both the environmental and biodiversity value it provides, and as well as the recreational benefits. I believe the land actually belongs to the community. Well, we know it does. And I think if we look at page, doing a bird's eye view, as Councillor Lemon would say, page 197, and look at the bird's eye view, if we see all the houses that abut the community land, properties 2 and 4, which have applied for to purchase the land, as well as number 55 and number 57 on Yeronga Avenue, all of these properties have been acquired in the last 13 years. So they're all newly bought into the area, and I think they've just assumed, it seems to me, they've assumed the rights they have to the community land at the bottom of their gardens, essentially. This is particularly the case for number 2 and 4 Spencer Street. I would have expected that when property changes hands, people do a title search and they actually see what they're buying and what is their property and what is community land. So I think we have a duty to preserve and maintain our community land. We've talked about this. It's a major plank of our Pocket Parks Community Land Management Plan to actually use this as part of our urban environment. So it's a major part of our urban environment as parcels of open space whose primary purpose is passive recreation. So I think we've got a duty to maintain this. I think while an application has been made and the staff have rightly processed this and brought it to us, and there's a very detailed process to revoke it because being community land, it has a very important status. I don't think that while we're now aware of the status of this unusual reserve, which it is, as anyone who's visited it will see, we need to negotiate with the affected property owners. I think we should let them know that it's council's wish that we maintain this as community land and that they be negotiated with to allow us to replant it and return it to community use.
Thank you, Councillor Davey. Do we have a seconder, please? Councillor Davey, could you just turn your microphone off, please? Sorry? Sorry. I saw Councillor Hughes second. Want a second? You want to speak first? Oh, okay. All right, so do you want to do that first? Okay, just before, there's some enhancement that's required about item 2.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just for the sake of clarity, I wonder if Councillor Davey, you'd be amenable to including, and I'll read it out first, just so you can understand my intent. For point 2, adopts option 3 to reinstate the portion of McKenna Street Reserve and Yeronga Drainage Reserve adjacent to number 2 Spencer Street, number 4 Spencer Street, and between number 55 to 57 Yeronga Avenue as accessible community land, and proceeds with the process to remove encroachments, and then follow on with your words, retain trees where possible and open to linked. It just provides exact clarity going forward.
I think that specifies for not only the readers of this report, but also for administration in terms of delineating the boundaries that are required, and it helps people to understand that as well. So if you're okay with that, Councillor Davey, you can pass that on to Wendy.
Yep, we can do that.
In the meantime, we can... Oh, you've got something else?
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor.
That's okay.
Just a further thought. Certainly. Just a further thought. We've had a look at the potential cost of this resolution, and just for the benefit of council and for potential inclusion in the resolution, we believe it could cost between 30,000 and 60,000. It's a broad range, but it's an estimate depending on which way it goes, just going on our experience with closing encroachments. I just thought it was important for council to be aware of that.
So it could cost between $30,000 and $60,000.
Yep, depending on how smooth or difficult the process is. Thank you.
Right, now Councillor Hughes.
I'll reserve my right, but can I just clarify, would those costs be on council because it's actually our land, and is it on the owners to then rectify their encroachments?
Through Madam Mayor, if I can refer that to Mr. Cant.
Through the Mayor, there would be some costs on council, so they would be potentially for removal of existing structures if the homeowner were able to show that they were in place before they took ownership of the house. We would be liable for instatement of half the cost of boundary fencing right along the length of it under the Fences Act. We'd have some legal costs associated with issuing notices and seeking removal of those encroachments. Those costs could go up quite substantially if any of the owners appeal and take us to court. And then we'd also have a little bit of cost for tidying up the laneway to make it traversable, because there's quite a bit of shrubbery through there at the moment.
So through Madam Mayor, my suggestion would be, again with the indulgence of Councillor Davey, to include provision, as a point 4, to include provision in the 21-22 draft budget to enact this resolution.
Councillor Hughes, you still okay with seconding it, but you're going to reserve your right to speak later. So therefore, Councillor Davis, you wish.
I may have missed it. The value of the entire, that portion of the reserve. So if all homeowners were to purchase that entire stretch that they've encroached upon, how much would that be worth?
Through Madam Mayor, if I can refer that to Mr. Cant.
Through the Mayor, we haven't sought an official valuation yet, but if council were to go with the original recommendation to look at selling that parcel of land, and it was supported through the community consultation process, it would be subject to the value from a licensed valuer. We haven't got those costs at this point in time.
Can we guess? Do we know what the total? Oh, I've already asked my question.
Hang on, I just make sure there's no one else who wishes to ask a question. Okay, Councillor Henschke, and then it can get back to you, Councillor Davis.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Mayor. In terms of process, are we required to go out to community consultation with this situation?
Through Madam Mayor, I'll refer that to Mr. Kent.
Through the Mayor.
Could we keep the dialogue just through here, please?
Through the Mayor, the current proposal that's up on the screen would not require broad community consultation. It would just be dealing with the affected landowners.
I have a few people here. That was a question just from Councillor Henschke. Councillor Dawes or Jones, I'm not sure who was first, because I was looking that way. Councillor Jones is going first, okay.
Okay, I'll speak to the motion. I think this is a great motion. There's 3 key things for me. 1, every square inch of community land is valuable and should never be sold. It's a haven for trees. Even not a single soul set foot in it all year, it would still be a haven for flora and fauna, and we should keep it. Secondly, we've been told that they want to buy the land so that they can subdivide. We should take a stand against urban infill always. Thirdly, can I remember my third point? Thirdly, this is Matilda Lane all over. If we don't remove the encroachments, they will increasingly be able to say year after year, Council hasn't challenged our occupation of the land, therefore it now belongs to us. Let's not be having this 70-year fiasco we had with Matilda Lane in Eastwood. Let's tell them, we have a saying back in the old country, get off my land. So I hope you support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Now, Councillor Dawes.
Oh,
Hard act to follow.
No. A question, if I may, of administration. I only went to the McKinnon Street Reserve marked in red on page 197. I don't think we can walk. Is that right? At the moment, we can't walk all the way to Yeronga. Can I just have that confirmed? And what is in the way?
Through Madam Mayor, I refer that to Mr. Can.
Through the Mayor, that's correct. At the moment, there have been fences put up at both ends, so it's not accessible to the community at present.
Yes, Councillor Dawes.
And there's a right-of-way of number 4, which goes across the reserve. I didn't check to see what that right-of-way, how does that affect the public from going along that particular slot of land there from McKinnon Street Reserve all the way to Yeronga?
Through my understanding, and I'll stand corrected, is that whilst we would be able to open that lane, we would not be able to stop the access from 4 Spencer Street. So it would mean as long as there was a traffic way allowing access, that would be allowable. So we are able to open as long as that property, and it might be by the way of some gate mechanism, but as long as they have access across from between the 2 properties, we'll still be legally able to do that.
Now, the next person is Councillor Davis to ask a question or to speak.
Yeah, I'll speak. I think it's very easy to have an extreme point of view. My views are a lot more moderate in that we should think about what this land what it can offer to our residents and what it could mean for our residents. If you have a look at the diagram on page 189, there's a pathway, and how much value are our community going to get from that much land being in a long, elongated form, bordered by 2 fences which are colour-bond? Do our residents need that walkway to access the avenue? To my mind, it seems that we should at least say to them, rather like this motion proceeds to remove them immediately. I would think that there is an in-between step where we should determine what the value is, because none of us here know what the value is, and to determine whether they would be interested in purchasing it. And the idea that every single piece of centimetre that we have now is somehow sacred is ludicrous to me. Because what could happen is that square meterage, that amount of land, could be used to purchase the property next to McKenna Street Reserve and double it in size and make it usable land that people can go and have a picnic with. They can actually go and use it for their benefit. Finding small amounts of land in a terrible configuration that offer, in my view, very little to the residents there. I mean, there's a walkway there. It's not like they need that egress. It's going to be, imagine it for yourself in terms of community space. There's going to be a footpath on the other side of the house, and you're going to walk down a road where there's just colour-bond fences through there. How valuable would you like more space like that? Would you like to sell Constable Hyde Garden so that we could get more blocked-in walkways for people to walk when there's an adjoining footpath just next door? What I see as useful land is land that people can use it, they can enjoy it, they can use the open space. So what we could do with this money is absolutely quarantine it and ensure that after its sale we find there's a vacant block where we could put a pocket park and purchase the land. I don't know how much it's worth. Is it worth $1 million? Is it worth $200,000? You don't know. We don't know yet. So what I would be suggesting that we do is at least write to the residents and ask them if they would be interested. At least ask for a report to come back advising us what the value is and see what their initial view is. And if we go down the route of then removing the encroachments, sure, I'm on top of that. I agree with that. If they're going to refuse to make a reasonable offer, then absolutely let's remove the encroachments. I'll vote for that. But in the meantime, shouldn't we come at this from a pragmatic, less emotive view and look at this reasonably and question what the value of that particular walkway is, and take a moderate approach to this particular issue.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Councillor Henschke, you have a question or wish to speak?
A question. That strip of land, does that provide a walkway for children or residents potentially? Because we're trying to make a walkable city.
Through Madam Mayor, are you talking about the current status or the
Yep.
proposed status? The current status is it's fenced, one end there's no access.
Sorry, proposed, I mean, because it's Yeronga Avenue is a curved street, and I imagine there'd be a pathway around there, but would this proposed route create benefits for the community?
That would be at the discretion of council. Once you've completed the proposed revocation, then council can determine the use. But I imagine you would have it as an access way. Otherwise, it is not a well-utilised piece of land.
And another question. Sorry, that's right. Thank you.
Councillor Hughes, you wish to speak or ask another question?
I'll speak, and I guess I'm not coming at it...
Because you were seconding the motion.
Yes, so I have reserved my right. I'll speak very briefly. I guess you can look at this from a number of different perspectives, and I guess there's that of this is land and we should protect it. I'm actually looking at it from an engineering point of view and saying we have a 1,200 diameter pipe that runs down that, and even though we did sell the land, we would protect that access with an easement. This is actually takes stormwater from Kensington Gardens Reserve, and if we think about the risks associated with climate change, potential changes in flows, I actually think we should protect this land so that we have access to it in case we actually need to do any significant work, because it is actually a significant pipe that runs through there. What I actually see as an important point as well is that there are a number of trees on there at the moment, and if we continue as the status quo or sell that land, we actually run the risk that someone could just come down and cut them, because they would essentially own that block of land. And there are some lovely trees. I think it would probably be an inconvenience to these people, but I don't think that's a reason to not make a decision. I think really this pipe, just stepping back as well, this pipe was actually installed in 1958 for those that weren't aware. Councillor Davey asked some wonderful questions following a site visit that we had last week. So I think it's not just about scrounging around to protect every little piece of community land. It's actually going, even if not a single person walks down this, there's a significant asset that the City of Burnside owns. We should protect that land so that we can do any works as we require without inconveniencing owners, but also we have some beautiful significant trees that are down there, and we have encroachments. So I think that's why I'll be supporting it, not just because we should protect every single aspect of community land, but for the reasons that we have a significant asset that runs down there.
Thank you. Councillor Davis, you wish to ask a question?
Yeah, from the administration, in terms of what is the value in keeping that land with the pipe underneath it, and having it clear of trees so the trees don't impact the pipe? Like, what is there a risk, or what's Councillor Hughes saying? What's the administration's view on that?
Through Madam Mayor, can I refer that to Mr. Cant?
Through the Mayor, one of the caveats we had in the report was that any sale would be subject to a drainage easement, so we would maintain access to be able to maintain that pipe regardless of whether it's sold or whether we keep the land. That access still remains the same, and our ability to maintain that pipe remains the same. In terms of trees, we're not currently aware of any trees that would be a risk to the pipe itself. Trees typically, my understanding is that trees typically will find existing cracks in pipes and then exacerbate them as opposed to making them themselves. So,
I have Councillor Davis to ask a question. Yeah, no, I've got 3 others as well, Councillor Davey. You're on my list.
How would people normally walk down Spencer Street or, get to one end of the road? Is there a footpath there? How would they normally commute along that path? Is it necessary to have that as an open walkway for people to commute?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Through Mr. Cant, I'll refer this one to you.
Through the Mayor, there is an existing footpath that runs along Yeronga. Sorry. Through the Mayor, there is an existing footpath that runs along Yeronga Avenue.
I actually know because I used to live in that street. Okay, now, according to here, I have a question from Councillor Hedgkey, then Councillor Piggott, then Councillor Davey, then Councillor Lemon. Sorry, but they all had their hands up before you, and now I've added Cornish. So, Councillor Hedgkey first.
We've seen this before in the chamber where we've had properties using community land, and my question, the second question I wanted to ask was, does the administration audit our community land for this type of encroachment, and should we?
Through Madam Mayor, I'll refer that to Mr. Cant.
Through the Mayor, we undertake those inspections where we're made aware of a potential issue, but we don't do it as a matter of course.
Thank you. Now it is Councillor Piggott.
Councillor Jones mentioned that it doesn't matter if not one resident actually goes on this property. That's we do need to be careful, I think. We are looking at assets, all assets of the council, and here we are looking to, bang heads with 2 of our residents, spend 30 grand to pull it back, and perhaps what we could have done is allow them to take control, which they already have, but pay for it, for probably 400 or 500 square metres on my reckoning, just the 2 facing Spencer Street. Maintain the access to the pipe. The administration seemed quite confident that there's no disaster scenario, that if we didn't own this land, the easement wouldn't hold up to allow us to manage that pipe. And it really isn't a piece of land that is of significant community use, certainly not from a resident point of view as I'd see it. I can't argue on habitat, but I think it's a fairly small issue to run, because the fact is, if you look at page 189, there's a footpath, a good footpath actually, in going around Spencer Street that gets you from the first fence at the end of this piece of land around to McKenna Reserve and beyond. So it really doesn't have a lot stacking up for it to go with option 3. The recommendation, I think, was right. Yes, these people have had an encroachment, and that's not the right thing to do. But what we need to deal with is what's the best thing to do for our residents across the city today. Okay, it's not about punishing them, the fact they've not done the right thing. What do we do now? And the fact is, that land would be better off in their possession. With us having an easement, with the fences staying up, we haven't had people in this chamber saying we really want those fences down so we can get through to McKenna Reserve, and I don't think we will. So I actually feel we can't do this on ideology. We do need to look at it in a measured way in regard to all assets, both financial and community land. And this one makes a lot of sense, actually, to get some money into the community land pot that we might use for a really good purpose on another night, as opposed to an ideological one here tonight. So I feel we should go back to option 1 and defeat this motion.
Right, Councillor Davey, you have a question.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, it's in relation to costs, because I think there's a bit of distortion in the costs here. If a homeowner is adjacent to community land, do they not have to provide the fencing for that? I mean, that applies to community land, including pocket parks and our parks and reserves. It's my understanding that the homeowner is responsible for the fencing, not the council.
Through Madam Mayor, if I can refer that to Mr Cant.
Through the Mayor, under the Fences Act, because that's adjacent a reserve, we are liable for half the cost.
Right, next question.
Thank you. I have another question.
No, you can't ask another question until Councillor Lemon has spoken or asked a question.
Thank you, I'm going to speak. I've heard a lot of stuff about balance sheets, about assets. I've heard a lot of stuff about being pragmatic and looking at the value of the land. However, I too want to be pragmatic and I too want to look at the value of the land. Did you know, and I hope I can say this without my voice cracking, did you know that last year 13 species became extinct? Poof, gone, just like that, just gone. 13 species. Just, I will get you the list. Fine, Mr. Balance Sheet, you can have the list next time. 13 species. Every piece of community land we own, whether people walk on it or not, that is not relevant. Every piece of community land we own needs to be kept for habitat, for species, for bees, for plants, for weeds. And in reality, that way and only that way are we doing the right thing by our residents. And we're doing the right thing by them right now, but we're certainly doing the right thing for their children. So I actually thank Councillor Davies for this. I don't want to make this a value proposition. I don't want more urban infill. I don't want any more Pebble Crete or another swimming pool in somebody's backyard. I want that community land to stay. If it's weed infested, they're native weeds. Let's keep it like it is. Let's get those encroachments off. And if people want to walk down it and look at the bees that are actually chasing the gum nuts in the ground, that's fine. If they don't, that's fine too. This is a piece of land that will give habitat to species large and small, to species both floral and faunal. And I think we need to keep it. And all that other stuff is irrelevant.
Thank you, Councillor Lemon. Next person is Councillor Cornell.
Can I ask a few questions to begin with? One question. Oh, damn it. No, that's not my question. It's not my question. Now I've got to prioritise my questions in my head because I really need to ask the right one correctly first. With an encroachment, with an easement over such a facility, if we were to pick another option, can the residents actually build anything over that easement? Or do they have to leave it as open space? First.
It's a newest answer, but Madam Mayor, if I'll refer to Mr Cant.
Through the Mayor, through the Mayor, there would be a limit to what could be built over an easement. So the limit would be a pergola or a garden shed at the most, but a substantial building wouldn't be allowed over the easement.
Right, I've got you down again already. Councillor Hughes, question.
I have a question, and I apologise for not sending this through to staff earlier today, but I'm just wondering how many other properties this drainage pipe runs through within the city of Burnside.
No idea.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, we don't have that answer this evening, but it will be a significant number of properties.
Correct. Thank you.
Okay, next one is Councillor Hughes. You've had yours. Sorry, Councillor Carbone.
Thank you, Worship. I am definitely always in favour. Sorry, I'm Ollie. I've got a sore throat. I'm definitely 100% behind Councillor Jones. We should never, ever, ever sell community land. But, and there's a small but, we owe it to our residents to deliver the best bang for buck, okay? We have to deliver maximum value every single time. Now, you may be in shock, but I agree with Councillor Davis. Now, I've done a very quick back-of-envelope calculation, okay? Now, it's a little bit optimistic, but we heard last meeting about the Glenunga house that sold for $2 million and it was falling down and so forth, so it went for land value, right? Okay? Now, using that equation, this land could be potentially valued at $800,000. Now, question for you is if you had $800,000 and you were tasked with buying a bit of land for the community, would you buy a dicky little laneway that no one knows where it is and will never use? Okay? Or would you buy a knockdown job on about 500 square metres of land? You know, that's the similar size to the Dulwich Community Centre, those sorts of things. Put it this way, what would you do if we could reset and start again? And it's a no-brainer that you would buy something like a pocket park, another Dulwich Community Centre. Crappy house, knock it down and make a pocket park and put trees and swings and all that kind of stuff. Maximum bang for buck, okay? Because this block of land is useless. It's pathetic. It's no good to anyone except 2 people in the entire world, okay? But if we sold it, $800,000, put it in the bank, and we went out and bought something that we could turn into a pocket park, what would you do if you were in charge of that money? So yes, we need to keep open space, and we will, okay? Because when we buy and sell, you buy and sell, okay? So the net is always the same. But sometimes we do need to be a bit more, a bit more due diligence, okay? And look at the land and think, well, what can we do if we sold it? What else could we do to deliver for the residents?
Councillor Davey, you have a question. Okay. Councillor Hubel is next. We've been waiting very patiently.
Thank you, Your Worship. Nina Marniol. Look, I've been really borderline on this, from reading the report to listening to the debate tonight. I actually think that showing this debate, the recording of this debate, would be a very useful educational tool. And when I teach civics to my Year 4 class later in the year, I will be pulling this one up. Because it really, what we're really talking about here is it's ideology versus pragmatism. And it is really an ultimate test of doing things for the principle and doing things because it's common sense. And look, and I've waxed and waned throughout this debate. I think keeping the land, it is ideological. Selling it makes sense. It's incredibly valuable. And I agree and disagree with a lot of what's been said by nearly everyone that has spoken. But this is not useless land to us. And this is where I'm making my decision. We've declared a climate emergency. Not, hey, we think this is important. We have said, no, climate considerations come above all else. And that's what's swaying me to support this motion tonight. The value of the trees for habitat, carbon absorption, visual amenity, they go above and beyond the benefit of selling to these residents and allowing a subdivision in one case. But I think we really need to stand on ideology in this instance. Not always. Sometimes pragmatism does come through and common sense can lead us in a different direction. But I think in this instance, I think we need to keep this land and I think we need to retain it for environmental factors.
Councillor Cornish.
I won't ask another question because I will speak. I'm actually not going to speak in favour of this motion. I'm going to speak against this motion, purely from the fact that, granted, we do have a climate emergency. Granted, there are concerns about land infill, but we've been informed that they wouldn't be able to build anything larger than a garden shed on this, even with an easement, because we'll need to have access to dig up whatever they do if there's an issue with that pipe at some point in the future. My main reason for actually supporting the officer's recommendation is number 4, Spencer. And that right of way to the swimming pool and the tennis court, where I think it's completely inappropriate for young family with kids to have to run back and forth across council land from one part of their property with the swimming pool and tennis court back into their actual house. I think that's completely and utterly inappropriate that we do that. And I don't think that this block of land is actually necessary for this council to maintain and own the way it has. We'll have an easement over that portion of land to gain access to that pipe if and when we need to replace it. So I will be voting in accordance with the officer's recommendation and not with the motion that currently stands. So that's where I stand. Thank you.
May I ask a question of administration? Looking at this property, could this become a battle axe block with access from Spencer Street to the tennis court so that the tennis court could be sold off as a separate, particularly if it had the extra land, could be sold off as a separate entity?
Through the Mayor, that if you're referring to number 4, that block's sufficiently large for that to occur at the moment anyway. So the proposal wouldn't change that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Davis, you were next.
How long would it take the administration, how much would it cost to find out from the residents if they were willing to purchase the land, and for how much?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Well, we already know the first question. The answer to the first question is that because they've expressed the interest. So the question...
I mean the whole thing. The whole line.
Sorry, I'm misunderstanding.
Yeah, like for that entire, the long, like the footpath that goes through the middle of all the houses. How long would it take us to write to the adjoining properties to find out if they were willing? Like, I mean, I'm talking about the whole stretch, not just the single thing, in terms of how much they'd be willing to pay for it.
Yep. So, through you, Madam Mayor, it's not so much how much they're willing to pay for, because if we don't settle at valuation, we've got to come up with a very good reason for that, for ratepayers. So it's about perhaps asking are they prepared to pay what the valuation is. We could, write those letters post haste and get the answer very quickly, I would have thought, within, Mr. Kent, a week or 2 weeks. Depends on the response time. Obviously, we need to get a valuation performed, so that may blow the time out. Does that answer your question, Councillor Davis?
Yeah. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak or ask a question? Councillor Davis wants to ask another question, but I just need to let someone else come in if there is anyone. Otherwise, Councillor Davis. And it looks like Councillor Henschke.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm very mindful about our future of the city with cycling routes, and it's one area that we haven't. I'd like to speak now that we really have got an opportunity to create more cycling routes through our back streets, so that I'm looking at the map here of cycling routes, and they're all confined to the main arterials. To get from Kensington Road across to McGill Road, it would be a very, I'm just speaking to this. Yeah, we have got major arterials crisscrossing this whole area of Kensington Park, And we're not encouraging cycling through the area, that ward, according to this map. And my thinking is that if we retain passages like that, we could perhaps create opportunities for cycling. I'd just like the councillors to think about that.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Councillor Davis, now's your question.
Can the administration speak to the type of trees like that are there, the likelihood for demolition for a house, like a dwelling being put on there, and the environmental risk, I suppose, of selling that portion of the easement, and to what extent it would allow a subdivision if it was complete with all the other blocks as well.
Through Madam Mayor, I'll seek extra commentary if I miss a point here. You would not be able to build a house over the 1200mm pipe. That would certainly, if you had a property that would not allow, say you had a subdivisable property and this pipe ran across it, across one half to the point where you couldn't put another dwelling on, that would cause us to refuse that subdivision. Essentially, as it was alluded to earlier, you could put, I'll call them light structures, garden sheds, pergolas, etc. Structures that could be removed should we need to exhume that pipe at one point in time. But essentially, a house will not be allowed to be built over that pipe. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and then the other part of the question in terms of what would be, what trees are on there, what's the value from an environment, how many trees are on that portion?
Okay. And through Madam Mayor, if I can refer that to Mr. Can, but I'm not sure we have the answer to that question.
Through the Mayor, an assessment of that area by our arboriculture team indicated it's primarily populated with a mixture of, and I apologise for my pronunciation here, Populus, Fraxinus and Cupressus of varying sizes. There's one eucalypt that looks to be located within number 4 Spencer Street, and there's a large eucalypt at the Yeronga Avenue end. Yeah, this is in the actual portion of land. What we were proposing to do prior, if the officer's recommendation had gone through, our intention was to actually do a tree survey that would come back with the results of the community consultation. If this particular motion goes up, we would still do that tree survey because it would help to inform enacting this as well.
Councillor Lemon.
Thank you. Can administration confirm that the people at number 2, Spencer, need to buy this portion of land because without it, they don't make the minimum plot sizes to subdivide? Can you confirm that?
Through Madam Mayor, I'll refer that to Mr. Can.
I know where that says. Which means it'll be a flash.
Sorry. The minimum guideline for semi-detached dwellings is 500 square metres per resulting allotment. If they were to purchase this land, their overall size would be 993 square metres, which is 7 square metres short. Divided equally, that's about 3.5 square metres per dwelling short. So it would just be under the requirement.
Councillor Hughes was next, and then I'll come back to you, Councillor.
I have a question in regards to the easement, and this is based on my own personal experience because I actually have an easement in my own backyard. If we do allow the sale with an easement, how would we then access, assuming that we'd got the people on Yeronga to come to the party and buy their land, and number 2, would we then require number 4 Spencer Street allow us access to the easement so that if something happened to that section of pipe on their property, we would have to go through their property as opposed to going through the adjoining properties? So based on my looking at the frontage when we went through there, I don't think you'd be able to fit an excavator from the front of number 4 through to the back of number 4. So would we then meet I guess I'm just trying to understand what the requirements of the easement would be, because we're all talking about, oh, we've got the potential that we could sell that and we would still have access to the pipe. But I guess in my mind, I'm saying if you sell one side and you sell the other side, I know Yeronga aren't interested at the moment, but they may well come to the party. We then have a section in the middle that you wouldn't be able to necessarily access directly, if that makes sense. I'm not sure if I've communicated that well enough for people to understand.
Through the Mayor, it's likely access would be through via either end, as it is currently. So either from the Yeronga Drainage Reserve end or through the McKenna Street Reserve end.
Councillor Lemon?
Yes, I'd like to ask how we as a council can morally ask that minimum block sizes be kept to standard when we would be willing, in this instance, or in fact encouraging people to make application for a subdivision that is 7 square metres less than what our current and what our minimum standards are. How can we then, with a clear conscience, rail and rant against planning department when we're doing this, and pretty much at that stage giving those residents a nod that
Point
they
of order.
can go?
It's not a question.
I'm concerned that there's an awful, this has probably had more questions than we've had all year on this one motion. Well, lots of answers have been provided, but we're just going on, and I think we're going round and round in circles now. And I really do believe that we need to move forward. And my suggestion is, unless there's anyone who wishes to say something, not ask a question, but say something really that has not been said, then I would like to move back to Councillor Davey so that she can sum up, and then we can have a vote. Because if this fails, we've still got the other one to go back to, and I'm aware that there is a need for us all to have a bit of a break. That's not making excuses and not trying to hurry you up, but at the same time I think it is important. So, Councillor Davey.
No, can I seek leave from the meeting to propose a compromise between...
I think we've advanced too far in this.
I'd like to seek leave for it.
Oh. Who supports seeking leave for that?
Speak an extra 1 minute, that's what I want.
No, I don't think it's fair either, because I've...
But it's there, and it's like to seek it. So
Yeah, you have a... Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you everyone for all your input and consideration of this matter and all its issues. It is not dissimilar to the Matilda Lane Eastwood situation and others of dealing with encroachments, which Council has recently resolved with all the encroachments there on Matilda Avenue, Matilda Lane, and all the associated huge costs which were accrued over the years. In a practical sense, access along both the portion of McKenna Street Reserve plus the Yeronga Drainage Reserve is currently blocked off. So you can't get through from Yeronga Avenue and you can't get through from McKenna Street Reserve. This whole block of land that is council community land is blocked off. There are a range of established trees along the existing fence lines, and that's not my main reason for moving this way. I really reject the emotive environmental baseline that was put up. Plus, there are 2 very valuable eucalypts at the Yeronga Avenue end which need protection, I believe. They haven't been assessed for years. With good design and management, there is absolutely no problem for number 4 Spencer Avenue being able to access their tennis court across a walkway. I mean, we do all sorts of creative things with landscaping and fencing and access ways these days. And in actual fact, they knew the situation when they purchased the home 9 years ago on the 25th of August 2011. So they knew the situation then. This land, community land, is encroached upon. It's in an equitable situation for this unusual site to be monopolised by 2 homeowners. For anyone who has visited and inspected the site, this land would be a valuable community asset, reopened with a walkway from Yeronga Avenue to the McKenna Street Reserve. We should retain the existing street. It's not wasted space at all, in any sense. We should retain the existing tree cover where possible and maintain this and any other vegetation for its environmental benefits. It does need a big tidy up and clean up. There's no two ways about it. We need this more particularly, as the point has been made, in a time of climate change, which we have committed to do all we can to manage in our small parcel and community of Burnside. And opening it up will also benefit the local community, which is the intent of our pocket parks. These residents have no special claim on the land. It's not in the interest of our community, and for the historical aspects, for the pragmatic reasons, for the ethical reasons and the environmental reasons. We need to retain any and all of our open spaces. And so I hope you'll support this retention of land and opening up of the portion of the Yeronga Street end, which the adjacent residents do not want to buy.
Thank you, Councillor
have
Davies.
fenced off anyway.
Right, I put the motion. All those in favour? 7. Those against? Right, division's been called. Please, those who voted in favour, stand. That's Councillor Henschke, Hughes, Davey, Lemon, Turnbull, Jones and Hubel. Those against, Cornish, Piggott, Davis, Carbone and Dawes. 7-5. Yeah. I'm giving you an extra couple of minutes. I think we need it. After that, I can't believe it. Oh. Again, right. Now the next one is 11.5 on page 198 and it's Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have an alternative motion. No, the first one, please. Not that. Not that. No. No. No, up. There we go. That's it.
It's version 485A.
No. No, that's not it. There we go. There we go. So I've got moving. Council receives and notes the Verdale Avenue traffic report. Installs road humps in the northern part of Verdale Avenue. This is between Hood Street and Greenhill Road, and a roundabout at the intersection of Hood Street and Verdale Avenue. Following the implementation of 2, removes the no left turn sign at the intersection of Devereux Road and Hood Street. Approves an additional $100,000 be included for consideration in the 2021-22 Traffic Capital Works Q3 budget for the installation of traffic control associated with Verdale Avenue, and that pending preferred treatment landscaping in the form of appropriate trees as possible is to be included. That doesn't need to be in. We'll leave it there, it's fine. Number 5, requests that the Department of Infrastructure and Transport investigate and pursue, if viable, the installation of left turn on red signage on Devereux Road at the signalised intersection with Greenhill Road, and investigates further traffic control, a vehicle lane, options to encourage the maximum use of Devereux Road as the preferred connection to Greenhill Road. So yes, this relates back to August last year when we received a petition from the residents at the northern end of Verdale Avenue who were unanimously in support of speed reduction controls. Look, this is a rat-running problem, as Councillor Lemon spoke about earlier. We need to get rid of, as we can. But it also, as Councillor Dawes mentioned, represents a bit of the piecemeal approach that we take from time to time on traffic management. So, look, this is what the residents want. This solution considers speed as the main issue that the residents have, and that the narrow, curvy bit at the northern end, is what makes the legal speed of the traffic a bit more dangerous than it does on a typical road in Linden Park and around the city. And this will actually be more of an issue with the new on-the-run development on the corner of Verdale and Greenhill Road, where the exit of the drive-through, drivers are presented directly with an exit onto Verdale. So there are going to be more cars entering that northern part of the street. Look, I don't believe this is moving the problem. I think that other streets in the area, this is not a like-for-like situation. This curve and the narrowness is an issue. The volume and speed that we're seeing on Verdale will not be as big an issue on Laurel or Torrens, and so the impact's not the same. I think the road closure in the report is a bit too extreme. Yes, it does hit the nail on the head, but I think it's a bit of a sledgehammer at this point. It's a massive detractor, but can be a real pain. I think the focus that we've got here on keeping traffic on Devereux Road is really important, rather than just keeping cars off a particular side street that we're having a bit of trouble with. The bigger issue really is keeping cars on arterials and our thoroughfares. So, look, talking with DIPD is a big part of the solution here. But I think the traffic calming of the speed humps, traffic humps, is the way to go. It's what all the residents on that section of the road want, and I hope to get your support on this.
Seconder, Councillor. Now are you going to reserve? And then Turnbull.
Can I ask administration why this wasn't their recommendation?
Through a minute, if I can refer that to Mr. Cooper.
Through the Mayor, as my colleagues behind me have just said, there's a lot of ways to skin a cat, and the diagonal approach, or the recommendation there, was felt to be the one that would solve all solutions. So we gave that a lot of thought, and really that was the one that stood out for us. That said, in discussions about the alternate motion that's in front of you now, the traffic team also are supportive of that one too.
Councillor Henschke? No, sorry, it's Councillor Turnbull and then Councillor... Can you turn your microphone off, please? That's it. Okay. We're using hands, not the buttons.
Yeah, I fully support this motion. The original one, the officer's recommendation, talked about the diagonal road closure, which, although it would solve some problems, made more in the other streets nearby, because I actually drove it and pretended I was taking the 10 kids or whatever they are to the Linden Park school, and you'd have to be winding up and down little narrow streets, and the cars are parked on each side, and it would just move the traffic further over. But that's one thing, and plus people also will be going down probably Turner Avenue because it's a nice straight through run. But at the moment, this one is good. It removes the no left turn sign. If anyone's been held up at that, the lights between Devereux and Greenhill, you'll know that's the most infuriating, horrible road traffic lights in the Burnside Council. You can wait and wait and wait, and sometimes you've got to get out and stamp on it to get through. So that's one I really approve of, and of course the impact of the on the run is going to be massive. Obviously it's going to be the same sort of on the run as down between Greenhill Road and Coningham, but Coningham is actually a little wider and you can get out more, and there's traffic lights. But if they have an exit on Verdale, that's just when that little bend comes around. It's really dangerous. So I like the idea of the no left turn. I think I mentioned that last time we discussed this, about getting that cycle of road traffic lights updated somehow and moving it on. The families will be quite happy on the northern side of the Verdale if they can use that'll suit them, especially the roundabout. That will be good, terrific. So I actually go with this one. There's nothing there that our residents would like. They do not want another survey. They said they're fed up with surveys. They want action. They want road humps, and they don't want the nasty little ones where your jaw hits your top of your teeth as you go over them. They want the nice modern ones, which are more like, well, I think they've got a different name, haven't they? Not the wedge types, but the other sorts. So I think the residents would be very happy with that, and it's terrific. Thank you very much.
Councillor Henschke.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got a question on page 202, paragraph 25, refers to 3 roundabouts would have been required at intersections, and now we've got this new motion asking for 1 roundabout, and we know that paragraph 26 tells us that 1 roundabout costs about $270,000. So I just wanted to clarify that this new motion doesn't mean we have to include or 3.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm happy to provide that clarification.
Clarification, thank you.
So paragraph 25 is alluding to 3 roundabouts. So each roundabout has been costed at $90,000, so 3 times. Therefore, we believe the roundabout plus the speed humps can be accommodated for $100,000 in this location. So that is a correct figure.
Okay, Councillor Dawes.
I was also on paragraph 25, a question for administration. They say there that we need 3 roundabouts because otherwise all we're doing is transferring the traffic from Verdale to Laurel and Town Torrens. Is that a supposition, or just tell me how they believe that is the case? Just give me some theory behind that.
Through Madam Mayor, if I can refer that to Mr Cooper.
Through the Mayor. The roundabout will have a big impact on dissuading vehicles from doing a right turn from Hood Street into Verdale because, I'm trying to think of the term, but it's an awkward manoeuvre around a tight roundabout to do a right turn. It's much easier to go straight ahead. So there is a possibility that some traffic that's currently turning right into Verdale will continue on Hood Street and then turn right into Laurel Avenue. We can certainly monitor that into the future and look at another roundabout if need be in a future budget. Sorry.
Councillor Piggott. No, there's Councillor Davey next and then Councillor Piggott.
Thanks, Mayor. Could I ask a question through you to the CEO? How does this plan fit in with our overall City Transport Master Plan and that whole process?
Through Madam Mayor, this is an issue that's been ongoing for some time. So at this point in time, it hasn't been viewed in the context of our master plan. So we're now thinking whatever this solution ultimately arrives here will have to be embraced in the master plan rather than the master plan informing this process.
Councillor Piggott.
Yeah. Well, actually, my question was along very similar lines. Could I ask a different question, but again around the master plan? Is it the intention that the master plan we've just signed off tonight will actually deliver citywide best solutions for exactly things like this? Will it give me, at the end of spending my money, our money, ratepayers' money, will it give us an answer to these? And this is not the only one, it's unique in a couple of ways, but it's not the only one in the city. Will it give us an answer for that?
Through Madam Mayor, I'm envisaging it will achieve exactly as you've described, that we'll do an overarching consultation / investigation across the city, identify key aspects of the city that have issues that need addressing, then address them in a holistic manner. Short answer is yes.
Councillor Carbone.
Thank you, Your Worship. Question to the CEO, but feel free to hand it back to Councillor Hughes when he's summing up, depending on the answer. But in my experience with the speed humps, they want speed humps, just not out the front of their house. So question to you is, you know, how are we going to address that sticky situation? And the second question is Laurel Avenue. At this point in time, are they aware that speed humps are being considered for Dale Avenue?
Through Madam Mayor, I may have to refer that to Councillor Hughes. As it stands from an officer's perspective, we haven't had conversations around speed humps with residents down these streets. And I guess that plays out in terms of the recommendation that we've made. Having said that, if the residents have informed Councillor Hughes that that's the solution they would like, I guess our job is, if this gets up, is to implement them in a way that achieves the goal without causing undue interference with amenity to those residents. Given we have had experience in managing speed humps and the noise created from car traffic in the past. sorry, I think I answered that saying that we have not consulted with any residents about speed humps coming down Laurel, because our preferred solution was the diagonal 90-degree crossoff.
Next. Sorry, Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Mayor. That was exactly my question. Does this proposal include community consultation of the residents in the adjoining streets?
Through Madam Mayor, I'll stand corrected, but my understanding, what I can say is that from officers' perspectives, we have not consulted on this proposal. My understanding, as it's been presented, is that the residents on the street have actually, in essence, come to council and said this is a solution they would prefer.
Have the adjoining streets like Torrens and Laurel Avenue, have they been consulted with?
Through Madam Mayor, I'll stand corrected, but my understanding is no, because that's not the solution that we've put forward for council's consideration this evening.
Next is Councillor Lemon.
Thank you. I'll speak to the motion, if I may. I'm happy to support this. I think it's always heartening to find a local councillor that's given some thought and consulted with their community about an outcome for a problem in the area, and this is clearly what has happened here, and I'm really happy to support that. I will make a couple of points though. I actually think it's really unfortunate that because our arterial roads don't work, our residents and the blocks back from arterial roads have got these sorts of issues. I just think that it just never ends. This is just a horrible thing. That intersection, that T-junction from Devereux and Greenhill, if they had a slip lane that was a left turn, we wouldn't have a problem here. So the point that I would make is that for the $100,000 and any other associated money, I would really be pleased to have administration approach the Department of Infrastructure and Transport to look for some funds, because we're doing this because their arterial road is inadequate and their intersection is inadequate. And I think they might say no, but I think not to ask is actually to just stand there and take it from them. So that's the first point that I'd make. I think it's quite important that we do that. The second point that I'd make is with the proposed redevelopment of an on the run where there currently is a BP service station, I would imagine whether maybe it already has come before our council assessment panel, but if it is going to come before our council assessment panel, one would imagine that we've got some sort of control over any egress they've got or ingress they've got from Vidale, and perhaps we should actually look at maybe seeking ways of minimising the impact that has on a street that already has traffic that it shouldn't have because the intersection doesn't work properly. So they're the 2 points I'd make, but I'm going to actually support this recommendation.
Just like to clarify through the chair that what the meaning of this item 6 investigates further traffic control brackets vehicle lane options. Can I just have some clarification what that means?
Through Madam Mayor, if I can refer that to Mr. Cooper.
Through the Mayor, that refers to an extension or an additional left-hand lane to turn left at the Devereux lights onto Greenhill Road.
Personally, I think that needs to be more specific in the motion, but as long as you know what that means, guided by administration. Next is Councillor Piggott.
Look, I don't support this. This has come to us a couple of times, and I don't disagree with what Councillor Lemon said about sort of an active elected member. That is true, but each time we discuss it, we seem to be on a path to get, what the residents of Verdale Avenue think is the right thing to do. And yet that's not, and this is the second time I think where that's not been the case, where the recommendation of administration has they've put something else up. And I don't think that's the right way of doing things. The other thing is that I do feel what we have signed off in terms of the transport does look at this far more holistically. It's a classic case. There's a lot happening in Linden Park, and you know, if I lived in Laurel Avenue at the northern end, or Torrens further on, I do feel that I think I'm going to get more traffic. And perhaps overall, when someone looks at all of those streets together, OTR going on the end of Verdale, having the kink, all those sorts of things, it could be that that is the right thing to do, that you do actually push some of that to the other streets. But in isolation and sorting out Verdale, just when we've sort of signed off a holistic look at these things, which creates the promise of actually giving us answers to this, I don't think we should be ticking the box for 100 grand on this right now. I do sympathise with them. It's obviously gone on for a long time. It's not the first council issue that has lingered a long time. That's not great, but I don't know. I certainly would like to see it first cab off the rank after we get our citywide work done, and with a solution that's more holistic to Linden Park as opposed to very specific to the northern end of Verdale Avenue.
Councillor Corr.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will be supporting the motion as it stands. I received a telephone call from one of the residents today who was definitely in support of speed humps in that area, and certainly made an issue with the diagonal road closure purely from the fact of the normal travel that people in that street would actually access to Portrush Road by going south along Verdale. So I certainly, you know, in terms of the cost, it's $20,000 extra from the previous costing, and I think a roundabout is actually probably a much more effective solution of slowing the traffic down to go around, and the speed humps are an additional slow point for the residents, and I think this solution is actually probably a really good one if we get it up. So I'm happy to support the motion as it stands.
Councillor Davey.
Thanks, Your Worship. I've got some problems with this. I agree that the Green Hill Devereux Road intersection is very badly designed, and it's very and signalled. It's just appalling, and the volumes of traffic are ever increasing. There's no denying that. And I think, quite apart from what happens with this sort of motion, I'd like to see the administration working as a priority with DIT to address this and to get the left-hand signal in whatever way they can do it, expedite it quickly and cost-effectively, or quickly. But I don't know if everyone around the table understands the implications of installing speed humps in Burnside. We've had some really controversial speed humps issues in recent memory in Burnside, and especially without consultation with the broader community. So with that I mean, those in Devereux Road have a right to have a say, but particularly the residents of Laurel Avenue and Torrens Street, and I'd include Tamarack Avenue. I think we have to have a really broad community consultation with that proposal before we could make any move on it. Otherwise, we're going to have real reputational damage. I personally favour roundabouts. I know they're more costly, but I think they're less disruptive, they're more equitable in the community, they're more environmentally sound. There's that emotive word again. But I really think we should not progress anything without consultation with the community, because I think that's really fraught. And the other thing is, I'm not sure how we're fitting this in with the master plan, as I queried before. We've got some significant problems in Beulah Park, and we've sort of held off because we thought we were sort of told they should be included in the master plan. But if this sort of thing gets up, well, I'm going to start activating and getting, activating for Beulah Park. So there's a bit of confusion there in my mind.
Right, Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Oh, Councillor Jones and then Councillor Carbone.
Look, I drove down this rat run purely for testing purposes, you understand, on my way to council tonight. And there is a real safety issue that currently exists that we need to address. I drove down that road and 40, Verdale, 40 was the fastest I felt comfortable driving down that road. And we know that the 85th percentile is 46. Driving down that road at 46 would scare me. And we know that's only 85th. People are going even faster. Paul and I are continually being told by residents about near misses on that street, which is why we really need to address it now. The local people have asked both for speed humps and a roundabout, and it was pretty much 100% response rate in the petition. Now, I am confident we're not simply going to shift the problem to Laurel Avenue, and bear in mind that Paul and I are the ones who are going to get it in the neck if it does happen, because you will be slowed down by the roundabout at the corner of Hood and Verdale, and then you come to Laurel Avenue where you have to give way. You can't just hoon round the corner, and then, crucially, unlike Verdale Avenue, Laurel Avenue is straight. Verdale Avenue's got this horrible kink in. I drive down Laurel Avenue. You can quite safely drive down it at 50. No qualms at all, and 50 is the speed limit. So I really don't think there's going to be a big problem. There might be a few extra cars, but they won't be dangerous cars, I think is what's critical on that point. So that's why I think we can get away with one roundabout and not 3 roundabouts in response to Councillor Henschke's problem. The diagonal, which is Councillor Piggott's point, I mean, as an anti-rat running solution, you have to say it's brilliant. The only problem is residents in both North and South Verdale Avenue have come to us and said, this is a real pain in the neck. Particularly, you know, if you're in the north and you want to turn, east on Greenhill Road, or if you want to go back round to Dev Road to be, say, taking your kids to Linden Park Primary School, that becomes really problematic if you have to start winding through these back streets. And if you don't know Linden Park, it's an absolute nightmare. It's not a sensible grid system like we have in places. It's all kinds of weird and wonderful streets. So people have represented to Paul and us. We only heard about it on Thursday, so we had limited time to talk to people. They're really keen on it, so I do hope you'll support the motion.
Councillor Carbone.
Thank you, Your Worship. A little bit unrelated, but it's super quick. I've just received a text message from a resident who's watching, and they've asked about the new On The Run. Now, two questions is, has the new development been signed off, and will the residents of Verdale Avenue be notified?
Through Mayor, I'll refer that to Mr Cooper.
Councillor Lemon asked a similar question before, but didn't get that answer.
Sorry. Through the Mayor, the answer to the first question is yes, it has been approved. And in answer to the second question, some Verdale residents, well, the adjoining ones, were notified, but chose not to make representations.
Councillor Davey, was that your hand up, Councillor Henschke?
Thank you.
Or? No.
I'm a bit confused about costs. Can you, through you to the CEO, can you enlighten us about what this will cost, please? Or give us a ballpark figure about the cost of these road humps and the roundabout?
So, through Madam Mayor, I think we're estimating the cost of the solution that's before you at $100,000.
Anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Davey?
I have another question. Has anyone thought of reduced speeds, like a 40k per hour speed limit through this region of the Linden Park area?
Through Mayor, if I'll refer that to Mr Cooper.
Through the Mayor, no, not specifically for this location. Again, that's something that would be picked up through the City Master Plan.
Anyone else who wishes to speak or ask a question? I'll just make some general comments. There are implications for the whole area. There are implications of increased traffic, which is still unable to be quantified because we don't know about the impact of the new on the run. There are some questions in relation to changes that are going to happen with Laurel Avenue as well, because the closure of the end of that street is going to also have implications. There are also issues in relation to Tamarack, because I know I use Tamarack as an alternative if I have to come to council before 9 o'clock in the morning and go down Verdale from there. There are also, so the turn left is kind of not particularly essential if anyone really wants to get through. And I think there are other issues in relation to the number of parked cars on Verdale that makes it a really difficult street to negotiate and to, as you said, drive particularly fast. But it is very dark also at night, because I often do drive through that street at night time, although I prefer, I have to say, Laurel, because it's straight. But there are a whole lot of issues that relate to this in relation to the whole master plan. We've had these issues before in, as you say, in Beulah Park. We've also had the issue, some of you might remember Hewitt Avenue, turning off of Portrush Road opposite Loretto, when residents came to us and wanted us to change that situation and have no entry into that street. So we've had these problems before. I'm not saying this is not an actual and a real problem, but I think you need to really just consider it in terms of a holistic approach. And the timing might not be right in relation to all the things that are happening in that little tiny sector of Linden Park right now. Back to Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Worship, and thank you, councillors, for your attentive debate. Look, I just made some notes during the debate there. I'll try and address some of the things. Look, this is, yes, one of the options that we were faced with. The traffic team, though, is supportive of this outcome, and it is one of the options that was considered and was part of the discussions. So I don't think we're really deviating incredibly from the expertise in the corner here. Look, with Verdale, the issue is not rat running itself. I think that's something we've got all throughout the city. The issue with the northern part of Verdale Avenue is the speed. Now, the speed and the volume on alternate streets has not been a problem, and I don't believe would be. The narrowness, the darkness and the curve and the increased use that we will anticipate from the on-the-run development are what make this northern part of Verdale Avenue a little bit different. I think that the 40 kilometres an hour question, that does always get up. But look, I've seen in the community surveys that we've done, over the, my 2 and a bit, nearly 3 years in the chamber, the community surveys I've seen, the idea of dropping speed limits across the city is widely disapproved of by residents. So I think, looking at the master plan, how that fits in will be really interesting to see. Look, yeah, Linden Park, it is higgledy-piggledy. It is, look, and I do concede, this is piecemeal. This doesn't fall within the master plan. But look, we don't have the master plan at this point. When the master plan does get, installed and we have it, then that's how we look at it. But I don't think we can put on hold, things from the residents' point of views just because, oh, look, there's this master plan coming, so let's wait. I don't think I don't think we can operate like that. So, look, the end is in sight in this, and look, I hope that this does get up.
Right, I put the motion. Those in favour? And those against? Motion's carried.
Thank you, Mayor. I move in accordance with the recommendation that Council receive and note the 2021 WHS and risk plan. And I just had a couple of questions. In relation to, at paragraph 9 on page 208, it's 50,700 has been budgeted for, I assume, is that this year, the 2021-2022 calendar year, for training for workers? Can I ask that question?
Through you, Madam Mayor, it actually refers to the calendar year, January to December for 21. So it's actually not a financial year, it's a calendar year that the budget spans.
And does that training include both employees and contractors in that sum?
Through Madam Mayor, I'll refer that to Mr Cooper.
Through the Mayor, it's for employees only, not contractors.
Do they have a separate budget, or do we do any training for contractors as well as part of our risk plan?
Through Madam Mayor, we wouldn't be training contractors. When we engage contractors, we obviously ensure they are up to spec in terms of our work health and safety requirements, but the training of contractors is a responsibility of the contractors themselves.
Okay, so is there anyone else who wishes to speak? I'll go back to Councillor Davey. You happy to that motion is put? Those in favour? Against? Carried. Councillor Davey, I think the last one is yours as well. 11.8.
Thank you. The Audit Committee. 11.7.
Sorry, 11.7.
Yes. I recommend that Council receive and note the Audit Committee minutes for the meeting held 15th of February 2021. And I just have a couple of questions. Do you want to have it seconded, or can I go ahead and ask my question? Thanks. Page 223, item 10.3, the Audit Committee self-assessment motion. Part 2 was that the management prepare a report for the Audit Committee outlining the risks to Council surrounding its relationship with Pineview, Burnside War Memorial Hospital and Brownhill Keswick Creek. I'm just wondering if I could have some clarification as to what that means, particularly in relation to the Burnside Hospital, which is its own separate and autonomous business, I would imagine. I think separately and quite different to the other two.
Through Madam Mayor, I agree with your thoughts there, Councillor Davey, that the risk profile around each of those three entities is quite different. I think the intent was to provide a report to Council just to provide absolute clarity around what the relative risks are or may not be. So it wasn't intending to say they all had similar risks or Council was exposed to similar risks. It was just to simply identify the unique risks of each entity.
Your only question, Councillor Davey. All right, and seek a seconder. Councillor Lemon. Those, is there anyone who else wishes to speak? No. All right, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Oh, what have we got? We've done 11.9, at 8 and 9, 12.1, questions on notice. Yes, questions on notice have been supplied via email, and there should be a hard copy, I believe, on your desk as well. Motions on notice, we don't have any. Urgent or other business, subject to the leave of the meeting. Councillor Hughes.
So, through you, Madam Mayor,
Sir Kelly.
I was having a conversation with Councillor Hughes earlier today, and she thought it might be beneficial just to me to provide a quick update on Era Water, and particularly with regards to the General Manager. Just to notify Council that the General Manager rang me today and informed me that today was his last day. And essentially now it sits with the board to appoint, I think they're looking to appoint an interim chair, interim GM, and that process is ongoing as we speak. I think it's fair to say it was disappointing that the GM chose to finish up on the very last day of his current contract. I think it's left the board in a bit of a difficult position, but they're working through it. Is that a fair assessment, Councillor Hughes?
Yeah, just to give everyone, I just thought it was worthwhile giving everyone an update, given that that potentially would be in upcoming board papers. So we're just trying to organise a suitable time for the board to meet this week to put in place an interim general manager, with then the view to find someone for the longer term.
Certainly, Councillor Piggott.
To the CEO, is it fair to say you knew before today that today was going to be his last day? You implied that was the case. I felt that the information was out ahead of that. It wasn't quite getting at 2 o'clock this afternoon.
Yeah, apologies if I inferred something different. So at the meeting the mayors and the CEOs had with Walkerville approximately 2 weeks ago, it was actually, and I will say it was dropped on us quite out of the blue. We weren't aware of it, and we were informed that he was going to finish up within 3 weeks. So it's fair to say his finishing date was known, albeit only 2.5 weeks ago. And at that meeting it was discussed the potential interim solution, which was to perhaps seek up to a 12-month interim general manager to tide them over this current period, and then understand what the long-term needs are in a general manager. Yeah.
Councillor Jones.
Can we second someone in?
I guess in short, it is a decision for the board. And when you say second, you're thinking from?
One of our staff.
It's certainly something that we've turned our minds to. Yeah, so it is an option, but my understanding is there are potentially 2 worthy candidates externally that are currently being considered. And depending on the outcome of that, because these 2 people may determine that they're not prepared to be interim, I think we'll have to look at it. Yeah, we will have to turn our minds more strongly to that option.
Right. Then if we have no further business, I will declare the meeting closed at 10:13 p.m. and thank you all for your attendance, staff and elected members, and those viewing at home.